Great Tribal Chief. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 376, One-Way Flat Push. More than half of the expeditionary forces far away from the Cree have not withdrawn, but the expeditionary soldiers who have returned to the Gaoshu tribe training camp plus those who followed the Stone Bear before, there are now close to 1,000 people. Moreover, the 2,000 recruits have been training for a month. Although they are still lacking in discipline, whether they are musketeers or grenadiers, they are already trained to skillfully operate muskets and grenadiers. Therefore, Shi Xiong did not delay, leaving 300 expeditionary soldiers to go home to visit relatives. These 300 expeditionary soldiers were just withdrawn from the Cree. They need to be groomed and they need to enjoy the family happiness with their families. The battlefield is a very place. During the war, I wanted to throw my head in blood, but once the battle is over, if the pressure on the soldiers is not relieved as soon as possible, then the war syndrome that can often be seen in future generations of retired soldiers, it is estimated that it will be revealed in the body of this group of expeditionary soldiers. And going home to visit relatives is undoubtedly a good way to alleviate the occurrence of this war syndrome. The company of relatives and friends can greatly dilute the emotions of these soldiers who have just come down from the battlefield. In addition, there were more than 500 veterans following, and the Powhatans were not very powerful masters, so Shi Xiong was generous and let the 300 veterans leave. Two reinforced regiments composed of 2,000 recruits and more than 500 veterans just followed the Stone Bear on the journey to Powhatan again. The rise of the Powhatans in about the middle of the 15th century, along with the rise of the Powhatans, was the decline of the powerful Shawnees. Under the leadership of the Pointon chiefs, the previous chiefs of the Pointon tribe before the 17th century, they all inherited the title of Pointon. They were eager and strong. They started from Appalachia. A remote valley in the mountains rose up, and it took decades to repel the powerful Shawnees and engulf a large amount of territory originally belonged to the Shawnees. Finally, in the middle of the 16th century, the Pointons reached their peak. If the Pointons are allowed to develop smoothly, maybe the Pointons can really develop into a large tribe that replaces the Shawnees. But at this moment, they met the Cherokee who moved south. Although the Cherokees were driven out of the Great Lakes by the Iroquois and Delawares, the Cherokees with a population of 60,000 to 70,000 at that time were still not comparable to the Pointons, who had a population of only 20,000 or 30,000. The Cherokees who moved south were eager to find a territory that was sufficient to stand in the fertile Appalachian Mountains, and the Pointons at the peak of integrity would naturally not allow the Cherokees to seize their territory. Thus, the war began between the two tribes. Although the Powhatans have the advantage of the right time and place, the Cherokee crossing the river is too strong, so they fought two big battles in a row, and they all ended in the failure of the Powhatans. At that time, Chief Powhatan could only give his territory to the Cherokees obediently, and then Chief Powhatan led his people and clansmen to move eastward, and move to the east of Virginia, where they lived. The area united some small local tribes, formed the Powhatan Alliance, and competed with the powerful Cherokee. Later, at the beginning of the 17th century, the Mayflower took British colonists to Jamestown on the north bank of the James River, and from there established the first British colony in North America. But it is a pity that the first group of British colonists and subsequent groups of colonists who followed the Mayflower to the New World in North America in the 17th century did not get the friendship of the Pointons. These British colonists who had just landed were blonde, blue-eyed and white-skinned. In the eyes of the Pointons at the time, they looked like white devils. Coupled with poor communication, the British colonists and the Pointons had a thirst. A British Pointon battle. It turned out that the crowded Pointons crushed the poor British colonists. Regardless of the Pointon being beaten by the Cherokee, the British colonists at the beginning of the 17th century were really not the opponent of the Pointon. Later things were known. Although the Pointons won their first victory in the battle with the British colonists, the Pointon chiefs at that time also began to pity these hapless British colonists. When Chief Pointon implemented a policy of nostalgia for the British colonists, The British colonists began to gain a foothold in Jamestown, and using Jamestown as a springboard, they began a large-scale landing in the North American colonies. However, when the last Powhatan chief named Powhatan died, his brother Opakanakiniu stole the position of Powhatan chieftain. And because Chief Opakanakiniu, who has always been hostile to the British colonists, felt that the British had invaded the interests of the Powhatans, so by various coincidences, the Powhatans broke out with the British. The Second Briton-Powhatan War. Unlike the First British-Powhatan War that was crushed, in the Second British-Powhatan War, the British colonists who had established a firm foothold in North America inflicted heavy losses on the Powhatans. Although the British were few in number, they had guns or even artillery in their hands, which greatly offset the disadvantage of the number of people. Therefore, over time, the Powhatans who had the advantage also lost the advantage they had before. The two sides have been at odds, but in the end, the Powhatans finally couldn't hold on. Even the initiator, the Opakanakiniu who stole the Powhatan chiefs, became a complete one. The charterer, the land he owns was leased to the British colonists. More than 100 years have passed since the end of the Second Briton-Powhatan War, and the Powhatans were assimilated by the British colonists. Although the Powhatans still retain a certain amount of territory and have a lot of tribesmen, the Powhatans have almost become dead in name now, and even the royal court of the Powhatans has no fixed place now. Yes, the Powhatans are now more like nomadic tribes in the northwest. Although the Powhatans still have more than 100 tribes, the current Powhatans are too scattered. www.wuxiasp.com The Stone Bear led an expeditionary army across the Blue Ridge, and from the later Rono after crushed out of the Blue Ridge, the vast plains ahead was the territory of the Powhatan. It's just that these territories, which originally belonged to the Powhatan people, have now been planted with a large number of tobacco leaves, corn, wheat and other crops. It was in this situation that Shi Xiong led the expeditionary force and pushed it all the way. All the British people encountered on the road are expelled from the battlefield. Shi Xiong also didn't want to turn his face with the British now, so naturally he would not give the British a chance to turn his face. But once they encounter the Powhatan tribe, it is naturally to be subdued under the deterrence of powerful firearms. As long as the Powhatans want to survive, they will inevitably accept the fate of being conquered. Otherwise, those powerful firearms can make them ecstatic. Still looking for Super Chief's free novels? Baidu Direct Search. It's easy to read novels. Chapter 377, Garrison in Jamestown. Stone Bear expected that it would be easier to conquer the Powhatans. At least it would be easier than during the expedition to the Cree. However, Shi Xiong did not expect that the Powhatans, who were once able to face the British colonists, would now become so declining, even far from being compared with the Cree. During the expedition to the Cree more than half a year ago, even if the Cree's large force was beaten out of the Oneida by the expeditionary force, the Cree was really tough. They fought the Cree's large force for the first time after a battle. Until the royal court of the Cree tribe, the expeditionary army hardly idled along the way. As long as it was a tribe that encountered the Cree tribe, there would always be a battle. Although the scale of this kind of battle is large or small, and the expeditionary army can always win easily with the crushing advantages of weapons, the Cree people are still brave enough to resist. For this alone, the Crees are much stronger than the Powhatans. Because of this journey, the two newly formed expeditionary force reinforcement regiments received almost no resistance. Not to mention the Powhatans, even those British colonists, when they saw the expeditionary army marching in a uniform pace, they avoided it early. In the eyes of these British people, this group of indigenous people is different from any indigenous tribe they have seen before. Not only are they extremely disciplined, the most important thing is that they carry muskets on their backs. Where have the British seen this kind of natives who are equipped with muskets? Others don't know the power of the muskets. They are British colonists who have muskets in almost every household, but they still don't know the power of muskets. The most important thing is that this kind of emergence is a situation where thousands of musketeers appear in a concentrated manner. The fault is not visible in large cities like Jamestown or Boston, but they are all regular British troops, natives of the New World. When can I equip the musket? And it's the kind of musket that is very powerful at a glance. The most important thing is that they are equipped with organizational muskets, which is horrible. We must know that the reason why the British were able to gain a firm foothold in the New World was not based on the advantages of numbers but the advantages of weapons. Although the number of British colonists in the 13 colonies of North America is about the same as the total population of all the Indians in the entire North American New World, most of these colonists are farmers and poor people. If they didn't have guns, they would be far from being able to recruit. Compared with the local indigenous people who are good at war. Even those regular troops will not easily turn their faces on the local natives. And now, these natives actually have an organized musketeer team, which is really terrifying. The British colonists evaded from a distance, and the expeditionary army would not trouble them, but those Pointons couldn't avoid it. Once encountered by the expeditionary army, those who can run away will run away. But those who can't run away will have to surrender obediently. As for the resistance, are you kidding me? What did they use to resist the expeditionary forces of the two strengthening regiments? Not to mention the tossing barrels, just the 500 musketeers in each of the strengthening regiments can easily destroy the royal court of Powhatan. This made Shi Xiong and the Bighorn Sheep, who had just begun to act as Shi Xiong's deputy, feel extremely depressed. In Stone Bear's plan, the conquest of the Pointons was only incidental. The most important thing was to let the 2,000 recruits see their blood, see how to fight in the real firearm age, and take part in more actual combat. In the end, he didn't think that the poor Powhatan would become so weak. I walked this way, and I saw that I was about to reach Jamestown, but the actual combat did not happen several times, and the scale was very small. The recruits below were suffocated. The intention of the Guardian is naturally very clear to the Bighorn Sheep. As the second commander, the Bighorn Sheep wanted to find some self-esteem from the Pointons, and vent the depression of losing under the expeditionary army. But the fact is that the sky has become even more depressed. Boss, the scout reported that the British Jamestown is not far ahead. Our fanfare past seems to have aroused the vigilance of the British. The Bobcats just reported back that the British Army has begun to be deployed. And like the mad cows, Bighorn Sheep is now very fluent in calling Shi Xiong the head. Shall we avoid it? Those British people don't seem to be very annoying, Bighorn Sheep added another sentence at the end. Avoid? Why are we avoiding? Shi Xiong glanced at the Bighorn Sheep with a strange look, and it seemed that this guy's vision still needs to be cultivated. This is our territory. We are the masters here, and those Vasikas are outsiders. Why should we avoid them? These words made the Bighorn Sheep's heart chuckle, but then he got excited. Boss, do you mean to practice with Englishmen? The Bighorn Sheep, who felt that he had figured it out, licked his lips in excitement, and the image of a militant suddenly appeared. Seeing this guy's appearance, Shi Xiong couldn't help but roll his eyes, and then looked at this guy who he had always wanted to train with a stranger look and said angrily, "You don't expect to train with the British." Now, there is no fight between us and the British. They dare not fight now, nor can they afford it. The Bighorn Sheep scratched his scalp, lowered his head for a moment, and a disappointed expression appeared on his face. He is very smart, and of course he can figure out why his boss would say that. Let alone the powerful force of the expeditionary force, even the number of soldiers. The expeditionary force is no less than the British garrison in Jamestown. The most important thing is that he was in the Gaoshu tribe during this period, but he personally saw the trade between the British and the Gaoshu tribe. Under such circumstances, the possibility of fighting is really very small. Sure enough, after the expeditionary army walked forward for more than a day, the figure of British soldiers appeared in front of them. www.wuxiaspa.com. Of course, in front of these British soldiers, there were two officers riding war horses. One of them was a Bighorn Sheep, knowing that it was the young British major officer who appeared in the Gaoshu tribe some time ago and traded with the Gaoshu tribe. Well, what does that guy call Major Fogg? Excuse me, are you Cherokee fighters? Is your commander the respected Guardian? This is Colonel James Jones, the highest commander of the Jamestown garrison. I hope to be able to meet with the respected Guardian. A bit. The tall Colonel Jones is holding a big tin horn in his hand, and his voice is expanded through the horn. so that Shi Xiong can easily hear his words. Shi Xiong tilted his head and glanced at the bighorn sheep, and smiled. "How about it? I can't fight it." The bighorn sheep mumbled disappointedly, "Well, you won." "Still, looking for Super Chief's free novels? May I do direct search? It's easy to read novels. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 378, First Sight. "Boss, are you familiar with this Vasiku? How does he know your name?" the bighorn sheep asked puzzledly as he rode alongside the stone bear. "Speak." "Well, it's quite familiar. Since 2 years ago, our tribe has started a deal with Jamestown. Well, to be precise, it is dealing with this Colonel Jones. By the way, last time those Vasiku trading teams from our tribe are the subordinates of Colonel Jones." After a pause, Shi Xiong looked at the Colonel of the Royal British Empire in front of him, who was becoming clearer, and continued to whisper, "However, I have never met this colonel before." "Before?" "It was his subordinates who led the trading team." The bighorn sheep nodded suddenly. The large troops on both sides stood in the rear, and only 4 people from both sides appeared in the open space between the teams. On the expeditionary side, there are stone bears and bighorn sheep, and on the British side are Colonel Jones and Major Fogg. The 4 war horses stopped at a distance of less than 10 meters. The 4 people got off the horse and looked at each other first. Then Shi Xiong and Colonel Jones laughed in unison, like to an old friend who hadn't seen him for decades. Walked tightly, and then his 2 big hands were tightly clasped together. "Honorable Guardian, although this occasion is a bit inappropriate, I am still very happy to see you with my own eyes." "Dear Colonel Jones, I am equally glad to see you." The 2 people almost uttered compliments to each other by coincidence. Then the 2 looked at each other and smiled in unison. There was a faint shock in Colonel Jones' eyes. Obviously, although he had heard from Major Hank and Major Fogg, this native who had been trading salt, cigarettes, and alcohol with him was a very strong big man, but his ears hearing is fictitious and seeing is believing. Today he saw Shi Xiong with his own eyes. The size of Shi Xiong still gave him a huge impact. It was the first time that Stone Bear met the greedy and cunning boss in the mouth of Lieutenant Ferguson and Major Hank. But what makes Stone Bear feel a little strange is that Colonel Jones does not seem to be a greedy and cunning person. On the contrary, this guy is handsome. Even if he is in his 50s, he is full of elegant gentleman's demeanor. To use an adjective of later generations to describe, that is old handsome pot. It's really not a person to look like, and the sea is not to be measured. Shi Xiong thought to himself, if he had not heard more than one person say that this colonel is a very greedy guy, Shi Xiong is really very good based on his face. It's hard to imagine that this handsome old man would be so greedy. Released his hand, Shi Xiong said apologetically, "Colonel, I have long wanted to come to the famous Jamestown to visit you, but my time has never allowed me to do so. I can see you here this time. It's really true. It's a bit embarrassing." "Haha, Honorable Guardian, I did not expect us to meet on such an occasion. However, if your army is not here to attack Jamestown or to deal with our British compatriots, I think we will meet this time. It shouldn't be embarrassing." "Of course not, dear Colonel. I led my army here, mainly for the Chief of Powhatan, Area 8. Our Chief Janaruska hopes to meet with Chief Area 8, but Chief Area 8 seemed to have some opinions on this, so our chief sent me over. My task is to bring Chief Area 8 to the royal court of our tribe, and then meet our chief. That's it. As for Jamestown under your jurisdiction and your compatriots, we will not attack. After all, are we good friends now?" Yes, we are good friends now." Colonel Jones was taken aback, and then said with a smile. Shi Xiong looked at Colonel Jones with a smile and said, "Colonel, I think we should clear up the misunderstanding now. Then, should our soldiers stop confrontation like this? This can easily affect our relationship." Colonel nodded in agreement. So the Bighorn Sheep and Major Fogg each blew the horn and bugle in their hands. Colonel Jones looked at the indigenous troops more than 200 meters away, put down their muskets, then sat cross-legged, nodded in satisfaction, and then tilted his head at the Stone Bear, and the Stone Bear rushed knowingly. The Bighorn Sheep nodded, and then left Huofeng, and walked to the side with Colonel Jones alone. "Honorable Guardian, call me the Great Bear, as my friends call me." Shi Xiong's pure London accent made Colonel Jones nod with envy. "Mr. Big Bear, oh no, Big Bear, it's true that the chief area of the Pointon is now in Jamestown, and the entire Pointon court is with him." They came to Jamestown 7 or 8 days ago and asked me to shelter them. "What's the price?" Ishikama asked simply. Colonel Jones was taken aback for a moment. It seemed that he didn't expect the Guardian to be so direct. "However," he said happily, "Chief Ariat promised to give Jamestown a large piece of land after this crisis." After a pause, Colonel Jones said with a wry smile, "Great Bear, you should know that although our king has delineated some areas in the New World, you are all Indians living here, and the only place we can control is our colony. There are also those cities, but every year there will be a large number of people coming to the New World from the domestic side. www.wuxiaspot.com. They need more land for cultivation and breeding, so we really need those land now. A large piece of land? Stone Xiong mumbled thoughtfully, then looked up at the Colonel Jones and said, "Colonel, I don't know how much land the Chief Ariat promised to give you, but what I can tell you is that I must bring Chief Ariat back this time. And you should understand one thing, that is, once I bring Chief Ariat back, then from then on, the Vadans will become a dish of loose sand. But what I can tell you is that the reason why I want to bring back Chief Ariat is not to invade the territory of the Powhatans, even if their chiefs are I take it away, and we won't occupy the territory of the Pointon. Well, at least half of this large piece of land between our clan and Jamestown will not be occupied by our clan. Colonel, do you understand?" Colonel Jones' eyes lit up suddenly. "Strong Bear, you mean?" Shi Xiong smiled slightly and said, "Yes, just as you think. The Pointons are already scattered in the sand. If they lose the leader again, I think they will become more vulnerable. And you, respect, Colonel, your soldiers are extremely elite, and I can assure you that the surrounding tribes will not interfere with your actions. Is this true? Is it not enough to have my guarantee?" Chapter 379, Future Norfolk Naval Base. For Colonel James Jones, what Shi Xiong said just now is undoubtedly a super big pie that fell from the sky, and it is also his sister's pure gold pie. Although the Powhatans have declined, the Powhatans, with a population of more than 20,000, still occupy most of the land in Virginia. Yes, although Virginia is the first colony of the British Empire in the New World in North America, it is also a colony directly under the British King, but most of the ownership of this large piece of land does not belong to the United Kingdom. In other words, its true ownership does not belong to the King of England. Although the current British national strength is thriving and even defeated the powerful France not long ago, in the New World, in Virginia, the local Pointons are the real masters here. Even in this century and a half, the British controlled a lot of land in Virginia, either by hitting or buying, but Colonel Jones knew very well that it was because the Pointons were now declining, and the Pointons were unwilling to resist. But once the Pointons really want to resist, then the entire Virginia will become very dangerous. After all, although it is not difficult for the British to beat the Pointons, there are powerful Cherokees in the east, and Crees who have been eyeing the Spaniards in the south. The Ghost knew that if the Powhatan were beaten, would it attract these two powerful native tribes? Colonel Jones has a deep understanding of this. Therefore, during his years in charge of Jamestown, he has been working hard to avoid disputes with the local aboriginals. For Colonel Jones, the Pointon of Virginia is a thorn in his heart. In fact, not only Virginia, but in the other 12 colonies, this situation abounds. The sites that the British can now control are mostly near some cities. Far from the city, the British control is still very weak. Colonel Jones certainly wanted to remove the thorn of the Pointon, but with the strength of his men, It was almost impossible to accomplish this. But now suddenly there is a more powerful Indian tribe who wants to pull out the power of the Pointons in Virginia. Isn't this a pie in the sky, and what is it? Master, Guardian. Colonel Jones only felt that his voice became extremely thirsty in an instant, and he could only swallow several saliva to relieve this thirst. You mean that if I hand over Area 8, you will give me half of the territory of the Pointon? What, isn't this condition enough to impress you? Shi Xiong had a calm smile on his face, but his tone became a little cold. For the Cherokee, the Pointon territory is a chicken rib. After all, it is too entangled with the British. If the Cherokee rashly put their hands into this land, it will inevitably cause the British people's rebound. Now is not the time to turn faces with the British, so there is no need to rip apart with the British for a land that is less than 10,000 square kilometers. It is for this reason that Shi Xiong very decisively promised Colonel Jones such a huge pie. No, my dear Great Bear, the conditions you gave are already very good, Colonel Jones said with a smile on his face. It's just that Area 8 brought the people from the royal court to Jamestown for asylum, and I also promised to give them asylum. This matter has spread among the Pointons. If I hand them over like this, they will be suppressed by our two armies, and they will not be able to resist. But once you after leaving, it is estimated that the Pointons will definitely resist. Jamestown has stationed such a small army, I am worried. What, Mr. Colonel, do you still want to fight with my troops for that Area? Shi Xiong asked playfully. How is this possible, my dear Great Bear? I mean, we should find a better way to solve this. Well, at least we can't let the Pointons blame everything on us. You say yes, isn't it? Shi Xiong thought for a while and he refused directly. Mr. Colonel, I think there should be no way to solve the matter you said. Area 8 is now under your protection. Even if we enter Jamestown and get Area 8, take it away, afterwards, those Pointons will blame all the responsibilities on you. So, as your friend, I don't think this can be done. What you should consider is how to deal with those resistance the Pointons. After a pause, Shi Xiong directly gave his conditions. Mr. Colonel, tell you the truth. The main purpose of my coming here is to take Area 8 away. As for the land of the Pointon, I won't take it to heart. So, east of the Blue Ridge, I don't need any of the land. We can use the Blue Ridge as the boundary. The Cherokee to the west belong to yours, and yours to the east. However, my tribe needs an exit to the sea. Come here. This is my final condition. The words of Stone Bear plunged Colonel Jones into contemplation. The western border of Virginia itself is to reach the Blue Ridge. Now this big man says that almost means giving up the entire Virginia to Jamestown. And now that the Cherokee have defeated the Cree, and now they have made such a promise, it means that even if they attack the Pointons, at least the Cherokee and Cree that they have been worried about won't make a move. In all fairness, this condition is good enough. As for the Cherokee people wanting an outlet to the sea, and it is still the territory of the Pamunkey people, this is nothing to Colonel Jones at all. The Pamunkeys are just a small tribe in the Powhatan Alliance, with a population of less than 3,000. If it weren't for this group of indigenous people living on the seashore who would make sea salt, they are very closely connected with the surrounding tribes. www.wuxiaspa.com. Colonel Jones has taken this little tribe down long ago. As for the southern area of the Chesapeake Bay where the Pamunkeys live, there is now only a small colony. So what about the Cherokees? As long as the Cherokees' promise of not making a move can be exchanged, a small colony is nothing at all. What Colonel Jones didn't know was that the area where the Pamunkey people now live will develop into the second largest city in Virginia in later generations. And in the area surrounded by the bay, there is also an extremely good seaport area, and in the future it will become one of the most famous deep-water ports in the world, and it will also become the largest naval base in North America. And it will also be the United States, the headquarters of the Atlantic Fleet headquarters and the headquarters of the NATO Atlantic Theater. There will be a resounding name, Norfolk Naval Base. Still looking for Super Chief's free novels? I do direct search. It's easy to read novels. Chapter 380. How can that be? Area 8, the chief of the Pointon people, and a group of high-level members of the Pointon Court were taken away by the expeditionary force the next afternoon when the expeditionary force led by Stone Bear arrived in Jamestown. The separate conversation between Stone Bear and Colonel Jones when the two armies were facing each other outside Jamestown made Colonel Jones determined to stand on the side of the Cherokees. It is not only that the conditions promised by the Stone Bear are too good, but the muskets in the hands of the expeditionary army also let Colonel Jones dispel some unrealistic ideas. After the confrontation between the two armies ended, Colonel Jones said that he was very puzzled that the expeditionary force could have muskets, because muskets are now something that European countries are forbidden to trade with the Indians of the New World. Therefore, only a handful of Indians in the entire American continent have muskets, and they are all robbed or stolen. But the more than 1,000 musketeers displayed by Cherokee's expeditionary army really frightened Colonel Jones. Such a well-established musketeer, even in the entire European continent, can only be equipped by a very small number of military powers. Even Jamestown has only 1,000 musketeers. Colonel Jones is very puzzled how a native tribe in the New World could have so many muskets. The most important thing is that Colonel Jones can see at a glance the difference between the guns in the hands of the expeditionary soldiers and the guns in the hands of his own soldiers, so the curious Colonel Jones asked one more question, and then he was attacked by 95,598 critical damage. "My Lord Guardian, the guns in the hands of these soldiers under you seem to be different from our guns. I just don't know how powerful it is." These were the original words of Colonel Jones. It's okay to say that this question is asked. It's a bit convoluted, but the problem is that when Colonel Jones asked this question, his tone seemed a little wrong. Anyway, this sentence fell in Shi Xiong's ears, and he felt that the tone of Colonel Jones's sentence seemed a little bit disdainful. So Shi Xiong raised his hand and greeted Kuema, and then asked for the firearm in his hand. This gun was independently developed by our tribe. Well, Lieutenant Patrick Ferguson was also involved in the development, so after the rifle was developed, I named this gun after Lieutenant Ferguson's surname. The name of the gun is Ferguson Rifle, Patrick Ferguson. Colonel Jones was stunned. He thought for a long time before he remembered that there was indeed a second lieutenant officer under his staff who had been in the High Tree tribe. "Ensign Ferguson will also develop a rifle?" Colonel Jones, who remembered who Ensign Ferguson was, asked again in a different tone. "Of course, Lieutenant Ferguson is really talented in developing rifles. For example, this gun uses a new filling method developed by Lieutenant Ferguson alone. Well, it's this rotary locking mechanism." Shi Xiong pointed to the gun mechanism, then rotated the lower trigger guard, and the upper locking mechanism opened. Kuema handed his ammunition bag over with a wink. Shi Xiong took it and took out a paper shell containing ammunition from the ammunition bag, untied it, and poured the lead bomb and gunpowder into the gunpowder chamber. Then the trigger guard was rotated in the opposite direction again, and the locking mechanism immediately covered the gap on the gunpowder chamber. This ingenious design made Colonel Jones stop talking immediately. As a senior officer, he certainly understood the benefits of this method of loading. "Quick horse, go over there and set up a target." I asked Colonel Jones to take a look at the power of our muskets. Kuema rode a horse and quickly ran to the position of the logistics soldier. After a while, he carried a thick wooden board and walked to a position about 200 yards or 180 meters away from the Stone Bear, and found a tree. He leaned the board against the tree, then moved a few steps away and stood still. Colonel Jones opened his mouth in surprise. "Master Guardian, don't you say that your gun can hit that board at such a distance? Is it difficult?" Shi Xiong smiled slightly, then raised the gun with one hand. "Because the barrel of this rifle uses new steel as the material. The thickness of the barrel wall is much thinner than the Brown Beth rifle in your hands, and the weight of the entire rifle has dropped a lot. Well, the total weight of this rifle will not exceed 7.5 pounds. This number once again made Colonel Jones open his mouth in surprise. The next moment, Shi Xiong only took aim slightly, then pulled the trigger, and a loud bang suddenly sounded. The recoil of the musket is great, but Shi Xiong's strength is even greater. Although he holds the gun in one hand, His arm does not move when he shoots. After firing the gun, Shi Xiong took out a paper shell filled with ammunition again, skillfully rotated the trigger guard, opened the gunpowder chamber, then filled the ammunition, closed the gunpowder chamber, and raised it firmly with one hand. Again gun, shoot. Colonel Jones' mouth opened wider, and he had only one thought at this time: how could this gun be loaded so fast? Stone Bear fired 6 shots in a row, and the total time did not exceed 50 seconds. This speed has already caught the attention of Colonel Jones. Next to him, well, there were many British soldiers who were in a daze with Colonel Jones. They have been completely stunned by the reloading speed of this rifle. www.wuxiaspot.com. It is estimated that they never thought that a rifle could have such a fast reloading speed. And if this rifle is held in his own hands, what an obvious advantage it would have on the battlefield. Under the stunned gaze of a kind of British soldier and officer, Kuwema rode away the wooden plank that served as the target, then returned to the Stone Bear and passed the wooden plank over. Colonel Jones stared at the board. Because the board was a bit thick, so the lead bullet did not penetrate the board. There are 6 lead bullets embedded in the board. On the board, it is almost an inch deep into the board. One of the lead bullets is still slightly smoking. How is this possible? Colonel Jones finally couldn't hold back the shock in his heart, and said aloud what he wanted to say the most. There is nothing impossible. This gun not only adopts a rear-loading method, but it is also an uncompromising rifled gun. There are 6 rifled lines in its barrel, so when the lead bullet is moving in the barrel at that time, the lead bullet will rotate violently due to the action of the rifling. Even if the lead bullet flies out of the barrel, it will still rotate at a high speed when flying in the air, which will give the lead bullet a relatively stable trajectory. So the effective range of lead bullets will be greatly increased. Well, you can see the effective range of this gun, which is about 200 yards, and its launch speed, if you are a skilled person, can reach 7 rounds per minute. About, a series of data once again gave Colonel Jones an incredible expression. Chapter 381, Cost and Selling Price. But even if it is unbelievable, there is no way to refute all this happening right now. The 200-yard target is inlaid with 6 freshly baked lead bullets, and the impact points are very close, which shows that the effective range of this rifle is definitely up to 200 yards. This range is more than twice the effective range of the P1756 long shotgun that is currently in the hands of the Royal British Army soldiers. If this is on the battlefield, with this effective range alone, people can live and kill their soldiers on the battlefield. Even if it was late autumn, the weather became very cold, but at the thought of it, Colonel Jones suddenly broke out with white hair on his back. As a veteran military officer, how can James Jones fail to know the importance of effective range? The Royal Army stationed in Jamestown now holds the Brown Beth P1756 long shotgun. This gun is also the Brown Beth rifle, which was developed in 1722. After P1724 and other tests, it was finally in 1728 the most complete rifle since its finalization, and now all the Royal British Army has basically replaced this rifle. But even with this rifle, its true effective range is only about 100 yards. Although the effective range of 100 yards is also very good, at least it is not inferior to the rifle used by the French. But if it compares with the rifle in front of me, it would be really not enough. The effective range is 100 yards. If this is on the battlefield, one's own soldiers can only be passively beaten. The guns in the hands of your soldiers can't hit others, but they can spare one shot at a time. How can such a war be fought? And if it's just the difference in effective range, it might be possible to make up for it with the advantage of the number of soldiers, but the problem is that this rifle in my hands still has such a fast rate of fire. The rate of fire of 7 rounds per minute is more than double the rate of fire of the Brown Beth rifle. His gun shot far and accurate, and the rate of fire was more than twice that of his sister's rifle. How to play this? After a brief panic, the rest of Colonel Jones is full of jealous. If your soldiers are equipped with this rifle, if the entire Royal British Army and even the Navy are equipped with this rifle, what France, what Spain, what Prussia, what Austria will all crawl under the feet of the soldiers of the British Empire. Shaking, Almost instantly, this thought filled the mind of Colonel Jones. "Dear Guardian, you don't know this rifle. Since you want to get this rifle, you don't need any face or face. If you can get this rifle, then General, can you be far away from yourself?" Shi Xiong glanced at Colonel Jones, who was smiling. Before he asked the question, he said directly, "Mr. Colonel, do you want this rifle?" Although it seemed rude to interrupt the colonel directly, Colonel Jones didn't mind at all. On the contrary, the Guardian's tone surprised the colonel inexplicably. "Yes, dear Guardian, I really want this rifle in your hand." Colonel Jones bent slightly and said, "The demeanor and dignity of a colonel in the Royal British Empire has disappeared from him at this time." Okay. Shi Xiong's happy answer made Colonel Jones seem to see God, but Shi Xiong's next words made the colonel a little at a loss. "I don't know how much Mr. Colonel wants to buy the gun in my soldier's hand, huh?" The colonel was stunned. "What, Colonel, don't you plan to spend money to buy my gun? Oh my God, you don't want me to give it to you for nothing, do you?" "Ahem." The colonel coughed embarrassedly. "Dear Guardian, I didn't mean that. I just thought you would give me a rifle as a souvenir." "Hee, Mr. Colonel, do you think I would do this?" "Please, if this rifle is not difficult to imitate, it is impossible for me to give away this rifle that I have spent a lot of effort to develop. Of course, we are old friends. If you really want this rifle, I will sell you these rifles that my soldiers are using." You mean to sell these second-hand ... Well, these guns that your soldiers are using?" Colonel Jones's face was uncertain. "Yes, Mr. Colonel, if you want this rifle, I can only sell these guns to you. Of course, if you copy them in the future, it has nothing to do with me." "Do you understand what I mean?" Colonel Jones is silent now. Shi Xiong said so clearly, if he still didn't understand, he would be a fool. Obviously, the guardian of this indigenous tribe is a human being, and the kind of monkey with fur. This gun is indeed a good gun. It is much stronger than the Brown Beth rifle currently used by his own soldiers. This has been proved by the Guardian Lord just now. But again, this is just a rifle. If a sample gun is available, it can be easily copied. The Guardian Master obviously knows about counterfeiting, so he will sell all these rifles to himself with a big mouth, the profit of which is the cost of developing this rifle. This is normal, but Colonel Jones doesn't want to pay so much. "Guardian, how much do you plan to sell for each gun?" "How much is it? Let's calculate this first. www.wuxiaspot.com. Your soldier is now using the Brown Beth P1756 long shotgun, right?" Jones glanced at Shi Xiong in surprise, but he nodded. "Well, the cost of this gun should now be 2 shillings on the 3 British list. But the purchase price of your Ordnance Bureau seems to be £6 and 5 shillings. I wonder if the price I said is correct?" "How did you know?" Colonel Jones once again asked this sentence without suppressing his shock, but it is precisely this sentence that proves that what Shi Xiong said is very correct. The cost and purchase price of the Brown Beth rifle are top secret by the Ordnance Bureau. If Colonel Jones' cousin had not worked in the Ordnance Bureau, he would not know the counterfeit cost and purchase price of the Brown Beth rifle. Colonel Jones remembered that after he heard the news, he felt very emotional. A rifle has a gross profit of £3 and 3 shillings, which is more than 100% of the gross profit. No wonder the gun makers in China are wealthy. It's me instead. If I can get the Ordnance Bureau to purchase his own rifles in large quantities, the colonel won't do it. As Colonel Jones of the Royal Army of the British Empire, he can only think about this and express emotion. The matter of arms is not a nobleman with a background behind him, who can reach into the Ordnance Bureau. How did the guardian of this native tribe know about this? Could this guy really be guided by the gods believed in by the natives, as Hank and Fogg said? Chapter 382, The Legendary Rifle. Of course Shi Xiong knew this information. First of all, he was a puppet military fan before crossing, even if he brought a pseudo in front of him. He was also a military fan. Secondly, he was a cultural protection staff in the museum before the soul churning. He may have not seen some old objects with historical significance, but he has definitely seen the information. For example, how can the materials of the Brown Bess rifle that once occupied an important position in the American Wars of Independence, the French Revolution, the Napoleonic era, and the U.S.-Mexico War escaped the eyes of the Stone Bear. The most critical point is that Shi Xiong went to the United States to study and study before the soul where, as an overbearing character, he always likes to learn something in advance to enrich himself, so that he has more adequate preparation during the study and study period. Therefore, Shi Xiong has carefully studied some of the history of the United States, as well as some important things, people, and important events. Regarding the main types of muskets equipped by the British Army in a single-force war, how could it be impossible for Shi Xiong to figure out the information of this rifle? Throughout the history of British ordnance, there is absolutely no weapon comparable to the Brown Bess series rifles. Even if the United Kingdom has always ignored the army, even if the British Invincible Navy dominates the world for more than 100 years, even if the British battleships once made the world tremble, it is not an exaggeration to say that in the history of British ordnance, no weapon can be like a brown shell. The silk rifle has been so dominating for 132 years. That's right, this legendary firearm has been born with difficulty in 1722 until the end of the post-Napoleonic era. Brown Bess has witnessed how the British Empire rose. Although the British Empire's conquest continued when the Brown Bess rifle was retired, and the Brown Bess flintlock rifle, this veteran who served the British Empire for nearly 132 years and a loyal comrade of the Red Shirt Army, Louis IV, the foe who has never forgotten when he ends up hating Napoleon. Even if he has made great achievements in the battle, he will not be able to match the white hair on his temples, and the old man. In 1839, Britain stopped all production of flintlock rifles. By 1854, the firing weapon based on the Brown Bess also ushered in the end of its military career, and the Brown Bess rifle completely withdrew from the stage of history. But in the next 1.5 centuries, no other weapon could dominate the history of human war for more than 200 years like a flintlock, and no flintlock could dominate the sun like a Brown Bess rifle. The empire has a full 132 years. In the early 18th century, the Spanish Succession War broke out. The two sides in the duel were the British-Austrian coalition and the French-Bavarian coalition. In the famous Battle of Blenheim, the Anglo-Austrian coalition under the command of John Churchill, Duke of Marlborough, defeated the 56,000 strong French-Bavarian coalition with 52,000 Anglo-Austrian coalition forces. Over 40,000, the Pakistani soldiers were killed, wounded and captured, while the British-Austrian coalition forces totaled about 13,000 casualties. Although the British and Austrian coalition forces have achieved victory, a series of problems caused by the uneven production technology of the British military muskets in the Spanish Succession War were exposed. Although the French were defeated, the rifles manufactured by the French based on standardization were the envy of the British. So the British at that time also decided to develop a standardized production shotgun. So on September 15, 1714, shortly after the end of the war, the Royal Ordnance Bureau of the British Empire signed an arms development contract. The main content of the contract included soliciting design opinions from private ordnance dealers on preferential terms, and then the Ordnance Bureau authorities' approval of production. Said that the European countries in the late modern times, military light weapons came from this way, but in the early modern times, especially the conservative Britain, this was a bold decision. However, this contract has not been implemented so smoothly. As soon as this contract appeared, it was strongly opposed by the conservative forces in various circles in the UK. Among these opposition forces, the British Officer Regiment forces are at the forefront. In the era when the uniforms and equipment were not completely unified, the government often only distributed maintenance funds to the troops, and how to use the funds under the institutional framework was basically the responsibility of the regiments and battalions. Even in the British Army of that era, officers' positions can be purchased directly as long as they meet certain conditions. In the United Kingdom, this system even lasted until 1871. In history, the long-lived brave and invincible Duke of Wellington was at the beginning of his military career, relying on this system to buy from the ensign to the major. This gave a glorious start to his career. This system gave the middle-level officers of the British Army a lot of freedom at the time. Many officers could control the cost of equipment to pocket the remaining money, and standardized production and procurement of weapons would undoubtedly affect their legal income. Their opposition is justified. There are also some private arms dealers who are also resisting. Standardized weapon production is not only a challenge to the traditional arms industry that pursues diversification, but those with vested interests absorbed under the traditional procurement system are likely to lose their original iron jobs. Although there are many opposition forces, the British Ordnance Bureau finally eliminated all difficulties. In 1722, it took 8 years to finally develop a smooth shotgun based on standardized manufacturing. This rifle is the Brown Beth rifle! After the Brown Beth rifle was finalized in 1728, this rifle has been continuously improved in continuous production, from a simple army model to later naval and militia models, from the earliest long model to the later short model. Anyway, the models of the Brown Beth rifle can't be said to be countless. www.wuxiaspa.com, but the number of models is also rare in the history of modern ordnance. In the just concluded 7 Years' War, some of the British soldiers were equipped with P1756 long shotguns, and before independent warfare, this gun was gradually replaced by the Navy, militia short Brown Bs. During the war alone, the British soldiers were mostly equipped with short Brown Bs. With the shot fired in Wisconsin, the British suddenly realized that their status in the entire world was suddenly challenged. Some European countries began to reach a simple and rude consensus on the issue of war alone. Never let those British guys live in peace. The plot after is very old-fashioned, such as the continuous conflicts between the European Union and the European Union during the war alone, the continuous looting of the British routes in the Atlantic, and the lack of supply of military supplies. Britain's military industry is facing tremendous pressure again, and it is the red shirts who are struggling to run in the new generation of infantry muskets. They are equipped with the P1777 short ground musket. P1777 short land combat muskets began mass production during the Independent War. In addition to the production of British arms manufacturers, the United Kingdom also signed huge production contracts with military factories and private contractors of other countries to expand the war reserves. During the 8-year Independent War, a total of more than 300,000 short brown bass muskets were produced and outsourced in the UK. P.S. Bowen thanked Anxian for your reward. Chapter 383, The Old Gun Never Goes Out, Just Forgotten. Not long after the end of the War of Alone, France, located in the center of Europe, once again heard gunshots that shocked the whole world. On July 14, 1789, the burning Bastille awakened all, including the owner of the Palace of Versailles, French nobility and all of Europe. And during the French Revolution, people all over the world knew another model of Brown Bs, Indian Brown Bs. The continuous improvement of the French rifle is to make the rifle more exquisite and different. The British Brown Beth has been constantly improving, not to make the gun more exquisite, but to make the cost of the gun continue to decrease. Therefore, as early as the middle of the 18th century, the cheaper Indian Brown Bess rifle appeared in the East India Colonial Company. But the Indian Brown Bess did not enter the world stage until the Napoleonic Wars. Because of this rifle, the power is not small, and the cost is cheaper. Around 1790, with the Napoleonic Wars going on, the British Ordnance Bureau desperately discovered that the French on the other side had mobilized nearly 1 million Morale Revolutionary Army, but their own munitions inventory was pitifully small. So while stepping up the reorganization of the troops, the British authorities noticed the economical Brown Bs already used by the East India Company's colonial army. This gun is shorter than the British armed forces today. And of course it is cheaper. Time is running out. Both the King's soldiers and the Empire's allies desperately need weapons. Although the Ordnance Bureau is not very optimistic about this model, beggars can't pick and choose. On the one hand, the authorities persuaded the East India Company to contribute their remaining inventory. On the other hand, They formally established a project for production of this cheap musket in 1795. This is the Indian Brown Bess, the origin of. By 1797, the British native military musket production line almost gave way to the Indian Brown Bass. There is also a saying that this type of shotgun was contracted and produced by the East India Company at that time. In fact, most of the Indian Brown Basses that exist today are still built by the local arsenal directly under the Tower of London instead of the East India Company. But in any case, the Indian Brown Bess went to the world stage in such a grand manner. Ishikaman knows that the cost of Indian Brown Bees is indeed cheaper, just like now. At this time in 1766, a short Indian Brown Bee cost only £2 and 4 shillings, and the purchase price was not much higher than the cost. At the same time, the P1756 long shotgun manufactured in the United Kingdom cost as much as £3 and 2 shillings. As for the purchase price of the Ordnance Bureau, it was as high as £6 and 5 shillings. In other words, the price of a P1756 long shotgun purchased by the British Ordnance Bureau is enough to buy 3 Indian Brown Bees. Don't the British Ordnance Bureau know? Hell if they don't know. But why don't they buy Indian Brown Bees? It's very simple. The benefits involved are so big that it can't even control the Ordnance Bureau. It is important to know that the purchase price of Indian Brown Bees during the Napoleonic Wars was not lower than the price before the war alone, but increased a lot. During the Napoleonic Wars, the average purchase price of a handful of Indian Brown Bees was as high as £2 6 times. Why is this? It's very simple. Just in the 11 years of this year, Indian Brown Bees produced a full 1.6 million pieces. Since the beginning of the year, the Brown Beth family, including the early firing models, produced a total of 7.8 million pieces, of which the Indian model produced about 2.8 million pieces. What are the benefits of this? I am afraid that even the King of England at the time did not dare to count. This is also the fundamental reason why the Ferguson rifle was named very well in the original historical time and space, but in the end only a mere 1,000 were produced. Those with vested interests who are used to sucking blood on Brown Beth, how can they allow a new rifle to break their interests? Therefore, Lieutenant Ferguson in the original historical time and space clearly invented the world's first rear-mounted rifle. But it still couldn't be promoted. Not to mention Ensign Ferguson, it is estimated that the head of the Ordnance Bureau wants to promote this rifle. Even Patrick Ferguson, who had been promoted to major in the original historical time and space, was killed by a single shot in a single-handed war. It is estimated that there was also a conspiracy behind him. After all, Major Ferguson on the battlefield led his men and shot a sky with a Ferguson rifle. Everyone can see the excellence of the Ferguson rifle. If this guy continues to live, I am afraid that it will not be long before the Ferguson rifle can replace the Brown Beth. So, Ferguson, a major, died. And just now, when Colonel Jones heard that he was asked to buy 1,000 Ferguson rifles, the reason why he quickly became hesitant was probably because of the terrifying interest circle in it. Colonel Jones is rich. Shi Xiong knows this very well. The transactions of refined salt over the past 2 years have definitely made the colonel a lot of profits, but he still hesitated, which is enough to prove his fear. You know that the flash hider was developed as early as the beginning of the 19th century, and more advanced Dreiser rifles appeared earlier, but the front-loaded muskets such as Brown Beth still persisted until the middle of the 19th century. Withdrawal from the stage of history forcibly suppressed the after-loading rifled gun for more than 10 years. This is because the Dreiser rifle shines in the Putin war before it succeeds. Whether it is a Dreiser rifle or a Min rifle, it is not comparable to a Ferguson rifle. If the Ferguson rifle is just a relatively powerful rifle, then the Dreiser rifle is an epoch-making rifle. But even the Dresser rifle almost fell with the same fate as the Ferguson rifle. www.wuxiaspot.com. It can be seen how powerful the forces surrounding the Brown Beth are. Around the Brown Beth, an unbreakable interest circle has formed throughout Britain and even the whole of Europe. No one dares to challenge this interest circle, even the King of England. It is because of the existence of this huge and potential interest circle that Brown Beth has ruled the British Ordnance for 132 years. It's just that the Brown Bess is no better than that, and it will come to an end. As the politician commander of the 20th century said with mixed reputation, the veteran does not die, but withers. For Brown Beth, I can only say the old gun is not destroyed, it is just forgotten. The vested interests surrounding Brown Beth are great, but they are nothing to Shi Xiong. Obviously, the Ferguson rifle in his hand is far more than Brown Beth. I have already driven a Ferrari, whose sister needs a bicycle. Not to mention that the 4 major alchemists in the family are now working on more advanced new rifles that combine the advantages of the Dreiser rifle and the Saibo rifle. Once this new rifle is developed, let alone the Brown Beth, even the Ferguson rifle Stone Bear will not take it seriously. I already have a private jet. You don't need any Ferrari or bicycle. P.S. There are more data in this chapter, but it is very important, because it involves some adjustments and plans of the protagonist in the later period of Ordnance. Chapter 384, 500 War Horses. These things were learned by the Shi Xiong in order to prepare for the research and study abroad, so of course he knew it. It's just that he definitely couldn't tell these things to Colonel Jones in front of him, so he could only smile and point to the sky, and said in fluent London accent, "Mr. Colonel, there are many things that are great, supreme, and omnipotent, the sun told me, so I know these things shouldn't be strange things." This reason is extremely powerful. With the eloquence and dexterity of Colonel Jones, it is impossible to refute this reason. Seeing Colonel Jones's stunned look, Shi Xiong smiled again and said, "Then, my dear Colonel, can we talk about the price of the Ferguson rifle?" Colonel Jones felt a pain in his heart after hearing the name Ferguson rifle. I had known that the second lieutenant had the ability to develop new rifles, and that he could develop such a good new rifle. At that time, he shouldn't have left that kid and that indigenous tribe. Now it's good, this rifle named after my own person. I need my boss to spend money to buy it. And, judging by the look of this guardian, this guy is obviously also a greedy guy. It's just that this rifle is really great. If your subordinates have such a rifle, even if you can imitate a batch of them, even if they are not promoted locally, they are only promoted in the colonies of the New World. For a moment, if 1 or 2,000 can be sold, then the profit is still very high. Well, if it is estimated that 1 or 2,000, it should not cause the domestic arms tycoons to specifically target it, right? When I went to Philadelphia last time, didn't General Crisson complain that the rifles used by the soldiers were not as good as the Kentucky rifles used by the colonists? If you recommend this rifle to General Crisson, 1,000 Ferguson rifles can still be eaten with his own financial resources. Well, as long as the big man in front of you is not a lion's mouth open, there should be no problem with counterfeiting. So if it is counterfeited and sold at a certain profit, then as long as 2,000 rifles are sold, the profit will be huge. If you can't sell it, keeping these 1,000 rifles in your own hands can also increase the strength of your subordinates. Recently, the Spaniards in the south were a little bit ready to move. If all the soldiers under them were equipped with this rifle, even if there were thousands of Spaniards, with the Jamestown fortress cannon and these rifles, they would still be able to resist the Spaniards. How fast Colonel Jones' head turned. He decided to take a risk and eat these rifles almost in an instant. Of course, the prerequisite is that the price of this batch of guns cannot be too high. If it is too high, it will be boring to eat. After making up his mind, Colonel Jones asked bluntly, "Master Guardian, this gun belongs to you. You should give me a price. If you don't pay the price, how can I decide whether to buy your rifles?" Ishikama looked at the colonel in front of him playfully, and said in his mind, "Mr. Colonel, we have been very friendly partners for the past 2 years. I don't think you will deny this." "Of course, Honorable Guardian, I will never deny this, and I also promise that, no matter whether our transaction will work or not, I will regard the hard-working and kind-hearted Gaoshu tribe as the best of James Jones in the future, partners and brothers." "Thank you, Mr. Colonel." Shi Xiong smiled, Then since we are friendly partners, then I will definitely not make you uncomfortable with this transaction. Let's do this. The brown bees you are using now, the purchase price of the rifle is £6 and 5 shillings, but my gun is more than twice as powerful as the brown Beth rifle, so I want 8 for the rifle in my hand. Well, £7 shouldn't be as high? Colonel Jones smiled bitterly and shook his head. Dear Guardian, if you follow a normal transaction, the price you said is really not high. But you also said just now that the Brown Beth's purchases were completely greeted by the greedy group of the Ordnance Bureau. The guys control, and the local arms dealers are also working with the greedy guys and even some big nobles from the Ordnance Bureau to jointly control the purchase price of brown bees, so the price of brown bees cannot be used as a reference price. After a pause, Colonel Jones lowered his voice and said, Master Guardian, after I buy these counterfeit guns, whether it is for promotion or other things, it will require a lot of activity funds. If I can't see the profit, I won't do this transaction. Shi Xiong thought about the transfer, and immediately said, My dear Mr. Colonel, what I just said was the price you faked and sold it out. Isn't it possible that this rifle can't even be sold for £7 apiece with its performance? Jones smiled and said, Master Guardian, but we are talking about these rifles in your hand. Second-hand rifles. In the last 5 words, Jones slightly increased his tone. Shi Xiong raised his hand and said, Well, my dear Mr. Colonel, you will let me lower the price of these guns. Do you think it will work? I will sell these guns for £5. You, after all, are a second-hand gun, and your promotion also requires a lot of expenses. www.wuxiasp.com. I can't make my friend lose money to do this. £5? This price is also high, Colonel Jones said after a moment of hesitation. My friend, this price can't be lowered anymore. Although these guns are all second-hand guns, it has not been a month since these guns were produced. My people have not fired a few shots, therefore, this batch of guns are actually still used. It's a new gun. After a pause, Shi Xiong continued, and I don't need you to pay me in pounds, I only need qualified war horses. I think for you, using war horses to pay for this batch of guns is better than using pounds to pay. Make you more happy, right? War horses, if 1,000 rifles are calculated at £5,000, I need to pay you 500 war horses? Colonel Jones asked hesitantly. My friend, this is exactly the number I want in my heart. I think with your skills, these 500 war horses shouldn't be a difficult task. I don't need any thoroughbred horses, I only need your colonists. Just raise horses. After a pause, Shi Xiong said solemnly, Mr. Colonel, my bottom line is to exchange these 1,000 rifles for 500 horses. As for what price you can get the horses, I don't care. I only need 500 qualified horses. Of course, if you think you can't do this, I think the Spanish in the south or the French in the west should be happy to exchange 500 war horses for these rifles in my hand. Colonel Jones' face changed, but he just hesitated for a while, gritted his teeth and said, I want these guns. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 385. Bottom line, Shi Xiong laughed happily. It's not good. He didn't expect that this greedy guy who Hank and Ferguson had always called a vampire turned out to be such a decisive person. But after a careful thought, it becomes clear. This is a serious colonel of the Royal British Army. He is in charge of the first British colony in the New World of North America. If he is an ordinary person, can he sit firmly in this position? Resoluteness is one of the most basic qualities of being a superior person. Colonel Jones also laughed and shook hands with Shi Xiong. Although the deal was only verbally concluded, as far as the two of them were concerned, the deal was already a certainty. Actually, Ishikama sold guns by accident. At least he hadn't thought of selling guns when he was fighting for the point. Just after seeing Colonel Jones, the Stone Bear had an idea. and the idea of selling these Ferguson rifles to Colonel Jones was born. Anyway, with the development of new rifles, the Ferguson rifles in the hands of expeditionary soldiers will be immediately eliminated. This is an indisputable fact. The renewal of the rifle used by the Expeditionary Army is not as small as the British Brown Bess or the French Saint Etienne, because of the existence of the biggest bug, the stone bear. The renewal of the Expeditionary Army's rifle is a real update, replacement. Once a new rifle is developed, its power is stronger than that of the Ferguson rifle. It is not a bit more powerful, it is really the gap between Ferrari and bicycles. There is a rifle with an effective range of up to 600 meters and a firing speed of more than 12 rounds per minute, or a fixed ammunition rifle, who still uses a Ferguson rifle. This new rifle developed under the guidance of Shi Xiong is almost the same as the rifle of World War I. With this rifle, even the Ferguson rifle is very good, but it is definitely not enough. Therefore, once a new rifle is developed and mass production begins, the more than 1,500 Ferguson rifles in the hands of the Expeditionary Army will inevitably be completely eliminated, thrown into the warehouse. It is estimated that they will no longer be used. Rather than let dispatch of rifles be eliminated forever, it is better to take advantage of the performance and power of the Ferguson rifle, far surpassing the Brown Bess rifle or the Saint Etienne rifle, and sell this rifle that will be completely eliminated by the Expeditionary Army to the United Kingdom, people or French. Originally, Stone Bear just showed this rifle to Colonel Jones with the idea of giving it a try, but the result was surprisingly good, and Colonel Jones was taken the bait. This is really no way. As long as you are a real soldier, you will definitely be tempted to see this new type of rifle that has more than double the performance of other rifles in this era. Colonel Jones may be really greedy, but it is undeniable that he is a real soldier. So, he knows the goods very well, he knows the goodness of this rifle. Then, Mr. Colonel immediately took the bait. In fact, it doesn't matter if Colonel Jones doesn't buy this rifle. It's not impossible to sell these rifles to French or Spanish, even Dutch or Prussian. With the excellence of the Ferguson rifle, Stone Bear bet that these countries will never let go of this rifle. Of course, it is best to sell to the British. After all, this Ferguson rifle in the original historical time and space has not been promoted for this and other reasons, but in this time and space, perhaps with the ability of Colonel Jones, this rifle can be promoted in a small area. After all, Lieutenant Patrick Ferguson, who has no power background, is far from being comparable to Colonel Jones. And in the independent war that is about to break out in a few years, Shi Xiong also intends to make the British and Americans shed more blood. If we follow the development of the original historical time and space, the British with the front-loaded musket really can't compare with the Americans with the Kentucky rifle. Had it not been for the number of British soldiers to occupy an overwhelming advantage, in the early days of the war, the British would not be able to fight the Americans. Of course, if it weren't for the later outbreak of malaria and smallpox that caught the British by surprise, maybe the ultimate victor of that war would be the British. Shi Xiong does not think he has the ability to stop smallpox and malaria outbreaks, but if you want to deliver something good to the British, such as this kind of Penn Kentucky rifle but also an excellent Ferguson rifle, and for example, earthen grenade and other more powerful the weapon, even if there is an outbreak of smallpox and malaria, the British can hold on for a longer period of time. As long as the British and Americans shed more blood, Shi Xiong doesn't mind pushing hard behind him. Anyway, it's all about a dog biting a dog's mouth, so I just need to watch the excitement next to me, then push it at a crucial moment, and the ghost knows what the ghost will turn into in that single-handed battle. My purpose is to bleed more British and Americans. As for the price of these guns, Shi Xiong thinks that 500 war horses is a very suitable price. Although current horses are still expensive, they are far from comparable to medieval cavalry. Medieval European cavalry often had 2 horses per person, 1 horse for fighting and 1 horse for feeding. At the end of the 13th century, a qualified war horse was worth about £15. But if you raise a war horse, it will consume a lot, So the cavalry at that time was really a very expensive unit. Someone once said that in the Middle Ages, it took 50 farmers to raise a knight. But even now, although war horses are still expensive, they are not like the Middle Ages where an ordinary earl can only raise 100 knights. Now on the European side, the price of a qualified war horse is about £10. If it is a war horse raised by American colonists, the price may be cheaper, and if you buy war horses in batches on the North American New World, the price can be lowered. As for how much it can be lowered, that is not something Shi Xiong is willing to consider. In the heart of Shi Xiong, these 1,000 Ferguson rifles, I'm reading www.hukenshu.com, will need at least 500 horses in exchange. Regardless of whether it is British pound or gold, it is of little use to the current stone bear. What Shi Xiong lacks most now is the horse. Once they can own 1,000 horses, the expeditionary force will be completely invincible on this continent. Now, because of the material problem, the mortar cannot be made, but once the material problem is solved and the mortar is made, then 100 mortars will be acquired by then, and all the gunners and supplies will be provided with 400 war horses, pack transport, the remaining 600 war horses, and then get 100 grenadiers and 200 musketeers. The other war horses are all used for feeding, so this one has high-speed maneuverability and at the same time it has 100 squeezers. The team of guns, 100 grenadiers, and 200 musketeers will definitely be invincible on land in this era. Even light mortars with a caliber of less than 60 mm can have a maximum effective range of 2,500 meters. In this era, this kind of mortar that can fire bombs is invincible. Even in the face of a military, the fortress can also be easily taken down. The heavy fortress artillery of this era with a very close effective range is not an opponent of mortars at all. Shi Xiong can confirm this. Therefore, trying to get 1,000 horses as much as possible is Shi Xiong's biggest task at present. As long as there are enough war horses, conquering the Midwest will be a breeze. Therefore, the condition of exchanging these 1,000 rifles for 500 horses is the bottom line of the Stone Bear. Chapter 386. Mr. Bird. To be honest, Shi Xiong did not expect that an idea he had inadvertently turned into reality. 1,000 second-hand muskets that are about to be completely eliminated can be exchanged for 500 war horses. This is definitely a big surprise. Of course, it will take some time before this transaction is fully realized. After all, it takes time for Colonel Jones to collect the horses, and Stone Bear also needs to rely on these muskets to safely bring a group of high-level Powhatan royal courts to the Cherokee royal court. Now that the agreement has been verbally concluded, neither Colonel Jones nor Stone Bear will care about this 2-month period, so according to Stone Bear's request, a group of high-level members of the Powhatan court hiding in Jamestown, Colonel Jones led a group of soldiers like tigers and wolves to them directly, and then completed the handover with the expeditionary force of the Stone Bear in a dense forest outside Jamestown. For Colonel Jones, the Stone Bear is definitely a worthy investment, and the top of the Powhatan tribe is nothing. The Powhatans, who were able to beat the first British colonists, and the Powhatans, who fought 2 wars with Britain, have completely lost the bravery of their ancestors. They are now just a group of parasites in Powhatan. The parasites on the tribe, they no longer have any investment value for Colonel Jones. On the one hand, there is the promised Blue Ridge as the boundary and the transaction of the 1,000 Ferguson rifles. On the other side is a group of worms, which is more serious, and Colonel Jones naturally distinguishes clearly. So, the poor senior Powhatan clan was sold directly by Colonel Jones in such a daze. Well, they didn't even have the qualifications to be sold. In order to please Shi Xiong, Colonel Jones directly gave away these senior Powhatans. Naturally, Shi Xiong would not take these poor guys. Their courage had already disappeared, and Shi Xiong didn't bother to use some methods on these people. But among these people, Shi Xiong found a very interesting person. This is a man in his 30s, sloppy, and he doesn't look like a person of identity. But such a guy, how can he get into the royal family of Powhatan? The curious Shi Xiong took the man out alone, and he was interrogated, only to get a piece of news that made Shi Xiong happy. This sloppy man is not a Powhatan, To be precise, he is a member of a small tribe in the Pointon Alliance. This guy has a rather peculiar name, Little Bird. Ghost knows how he got his name, but according to him, this is the name his father gave him, and his father is also called by this name. The surprise that this guy brought to Shi Xiong is not something else, but has a lot to do with his name. This little bird turned out to be a master bird trainer, especially the ability to train pigeons that he learned from his father is what makes Shi Xiong most interested and happiest. There are two things that Shi Xiong has the most headache now. One is the problem of war horses, and the other is the problem of communication. War horse. Fortunately, after all, the British colonists are now raising a lot of horses in the 13th colony. It is very easy to select qualified war horses among them, as long as the opportunity is right. Getting a large number of war horses is not so difficult. Just like a deal with Colonel Jones, 1,000 retired second-hand rifles can be exchanged for 500 war horses. When I go back and get some money-making stuff to trade with Colonel Jones, the problem of the war horse will not be a problem. As for communication, in this era when communication is basically based on roaring, it is almost whimsical to get a mobile phone or radio. Even if Shi Xiong knows a little about radio, he also knows that with the little thing he knows, he still can't make even the most primitive radio. Of course, if you find a group of European scientists who understand the principles of electromagnetics, they may be able to do it under Shi Xiong's general guidance, but Shi Xiong doesn't want to do things that are not guaranteed. It would be nice to be able to communicate on a battlefield if only the horse-riding signalers were to transmit information. But if the information was transmitted a little farther away, it would be a waste. Therefore, Shi Xiong has always wanted to find a way of communication that can transmit information quickly. Of course he thought about homing pigeons, but he has never found anyone who can train homing pigeons. Now, the little bird suddenly jumped out. How can this not make Shi Xiong overjoy? Xioniao is alone now, and his relatives have long since died in a plague that broke out a few years ago. This guy has a big life. When the plague broke out in the tribe he was in a field and escaped by luck. After he returned to his hometown and found that all his family members were dead, he left the sad place. Later, by chance, he was appreciated by Chief Ariat, so he served as the person in charge of training pigeons in the court of Pointon. The reason why Shi Xiong led the expeditionary army to the east of the Pointons never found the Pointons' royal court. In the end, a group of senior officials in the Pointon court escaped into Jamestown to seek refuge early. The most important figure among them is this Mr. Bird. Because the bird has long left pigeons conveying information among the various tribes of Pointon, although the carrier pigeon communication network he established among the Pointon tribe is not complete, it can be used to convey the news of the expedition army is enough. After interrogation, Shi Xiong learned that Xioniao's ability to train homing pigeons was learned from his dead father www.wuxiaspot.com, and his father followed a few years ago in Philadelphia with a few British people. Human. Xioniao didn't know how his father got the favor of those British people and learned to train pigeons, but according to him, when his father worked with those British people, he learned a lot, knowledge of training pigeons. I don't want to know too much about how the bird family learns to train pigeons. All he needs to know is that the bird trains homing pigeons, and now that he is willing to work for the Cherokee is enough. It's actually very simple to make the bird work for the Cherokee. A few packs of cigarettes, a bag of high liquor and some delicious food are enough to make this guy who is training the pigeon skills lower his head. As for how to train homing pigeons and how to build a communication network for homing pigeons, let the little bird take responsibility. Ask people for people, ask for things. As for pigeons as homing pigeons, North American passenger pigeons must not be used. Although in this era, the number of passenger pigeons in North America is still in the billions, and they are not extinct like later generations, but this plump bird tastes good for eating. If it is used as a carrier pigeon, it won't work. However, pigeon breeds suitable for homing pigeons like rock pigeons and European pigeons have been introduced to the New World of North America with the pace of colonists. Now there are many rock pigeons and European pigeons in the 13th colonies. That's it. As long as the bird can establish the carrier pigeon communication network that Shi Xiong needs, Shi Xiong does not mind giving him a bright future. Chapter 387, Repressed Warmonger. The 2,500 expeditionary forces are still like their predecessors in the Cree tribe. They have separated a part of the territory temporarily left in the Pointan people. They will complete the strategy of appeasement or suppression in the next period of time until the Pointans completely reconciled or Colonel Jones had enough horses. This is also the result of verbal discussions between Shi Xiong and Colonel Jones. In terms of the current strength of Jamestown, even if you add Richmond, which has just been established in the West for more than 30 years, if you want to control all of Virginia, you are still unable to do so. Therefore, even if Stone Bear has promised Colonel Jones the area east of the Blue Ridge, he still needs time to arrange manpower. Now there is the expeditionary force to help, and Colonel Jones is also happy to use the expeditionary force to suppress the Pointans. Therefore, the time for the expedition to withdraw is set at the complete reconciliation of the Pointans or waiting for Colonel Jones to gather the 500 horses. As long as the two accomplish any one of the goals, the expeditionary soldiers staying here will immediately leave without hesitation. If he hadn't walked around the Pointans' territory personally, then Stone Xiong might have been wary of this once powerful tribal alliance, but when the expeditionary army solved the royal court of Powhatan almost without blood, Shi Xiong could see the true face of this paper tiger. Yes, in Shi Xiong's eyes, after the powerful Pointans were assimilated by the British colonists for a century and a half, the current Pointans have long since fallen. To say that they are paper tigers is to praise them. Shi Xiong thinks that the current Pointan talents are out of the box. But Shi Xiong also knows that the name Powhatan is still very loud in this area. The museum leader who led a delegation to visit Knoxville before the Soul Wearers once said that once the visit and study are over, the Stone Bears will have a few days to go to Richmond or Norfolk. Shi Xiong, who is good at preparing in advance, specifically inquired about the food, clothing, housing, and transportation information around these two famous cities. When inquiring, he found many hotels and even place names with the name Pointan. This is enough to prove the influence of this once powerful tribe on the eastern coast of Virginia. In fact, this kind of thing is normal. The United States has no history. Since the founding of the People's Republic of China, there have been many names of places and objects in Indian tribes. Is like Tennessee. In fact, the origin of this name is the Outer Ear tribe of Clara-Clelu, and Arkansas. The origin of the name of this state is from the Sioux language, which means the residence of the place where the south wind blows. There are also many American state names, all of which come from Indians, and like the famous Cherokee Jeep, it comes from the Cherokee tribe. The Apache gunship is naturally from the Apache. Eastern Virginia is the territory of the Pointans. It's no surprise that many places here are well known for Pointans, as well as scenic spots, hotels and guest houses. Later generations located in the middle of the Appalachian Mountains, a famous national forest park named after Monongahela, the king of the Cherokee. But all of this has nothing to do with Shi Xiong. His task is to bring back all the senior officials of the Powhatan clan, and give the Powhatan a powerful shock by the way. Therefore, this part of the expeditionary soldiers who escorted the upper ranks of the Powhatan royal court, what they do every day is to these people, including Chief Ariat, wherever there are the Powhatan tribes, even the expeditionary army is going around the distance, and the purpose is to use the fact that Ariat and others have been arrested to deter the Pointans. The effect of this is obviously very good. Most of the Powhatan tribes who have no fighting spirits honestly expressed their surrender. However, there were also the Iron Powhatan tribe, and even a tribe when the expeditionary army arrived. All fell out, holding primitive and backward cold weapons to try to free their chief. As a result, this small tribe with only a few dozen people was naturally ruthlessly suppressed by the expeditionary army. Killing chickens and monkeys is always a very effective deterrent method. This suppression operation completely frightened Chief Ariat. When the next expeditionary army passes by the Powhatan tribe, Chief Ariat will even go to the tribe to persuade. Ishikama is such a person who only pays attention to the result and not the process. It's not that he doesn't care about the most important process, but now that in his capacity, He doesn't need to solve many things by himself, he only needs to pay attention to the final result. And this method is obviously what Shi Xiong would like to see. It is the most important thing to exchange a small sacrifice for the complete surrender of most of the Powhatans, including Area 8 and others. As for the process, did Shi Xiong see less before? It can be said that this time the campaign of the Powhatan people has progressed extremely smoothly. 2,000 recruits, led by 500 veterans, completely swept the entire Powhatans in a crushing manner, and the entire operation took less than 1.5 months. The expeditionary army set out after autumn, and when winter came, they returned to the tribe. In Shi Xiong's view, this eastern campaign did not actually play a role in training recruits, but somehow these recruits had seen blood. Generally speaking, the eastern campaign was very successful. If you want to say who is unhappy, it is estimated that besides the chief Area 8 and his party who were escorted back www.wuxiaspot.com, there will be the bighorn sheep, the warmonger. This guy has been following Shi Xiong as the second commander this time. Many times this guy did put forward a lot of excellent tactical plans, but these tactical plans simply did not get the opportunity to be implemented. How to implement? This guy designed the tactical plan based on the situation when he led the Cree army to resist the expeditionary army. This kind of tactical plan that can eliminate hundreds or even thousands of people in a single battle is simply impossible to implement on the territory of the Powhatans. You can't kill those Powhatans who express surrender, right? That will inevitably push the Powhatan people. This situation makes the bighorn sheep who have completely integrated into the expeditionary army feel very uncomfortable. Since he reconciled, under Shi Xiong's guidance, this guy has thoroughly demonstrated the potential of an excellent general, and this guy is really crazy about war. In the words of later generations, if this guy grows up, he will be a crazy warmonger. A guy who has the potential to become a warmonger is suppressed, and it must feel very uncomfortable. But there is no way. Shi Xiong did not want to let this guy mature prematurely. For this kind of person, the best way is to practice more like a eagle, so that when you go west or north, this guy can burst into greater potential when he encounters those powerful tribes. This is what Shi Xiong wants to see. Chapter 388, Chief and number 039 doubts. The stone bear who once again led the expedition back to the Cherokee royal court naturally caused a sensation in the royal court and the four guardian tribes. Especially the tribesmen of the four guarding tribes. They are all brave and good at war, or once were elites. Now in just over half a year, they have seen the chiefs of the two big tribes captured by the soldiers of the expeditionary army. How can this not make them proud? During the last expedition to the Cree tribe, although most of the soldiers of the expeditionary army were from the Crooked Deer tribe and the Gaoshu tribe, the four guardian tribes also sent some warriors. Among the merits brought back by the high-ranking officials of the clan royal court, there is also a share of the four guarding tribes. In the second eastern expedition, the Powhatans, most of the soldiers who formed the expeditionary army came from the four guardian tribes. Although they were recruits, they also assisted the guardian who is known as the son of the god to win the Powhatan people. Although the current Powhatans are far from being compared with the Cree people, this tribe is also a big tribe that has once been brilliant, and it is now the most powerful tribe in the land to the east of the tribe. Is such a powerful tribe. It was captured by the Lord Son of God in less than 2 months. If the tribesmen of the four guardian tribes understand the internet terminology of later generations, they will definitely praise it too powerful. When Shi Xiong led the expeditionary army back to the royal court, not only Chief Junaruska led a group of senior officials from the royal court to welcome the return of the expeditionary soldiers, but also the senior leaders of the Red City Alliance and the White City Alliance arrived. The expeditionary force was dispatched twice, and the Cree and Powhatan tribes were leveled. This shocked the tribal leaders of the Red City Alliance in charge of war. Don't even want them. Even the tribal leaders of the White City Alliance in charge of peace also appeared. And the high priest of the tribe Bukharazu also appeared. According to the ceremony of the triumphant return of the expedition army last time, He led the priests from various tribes to presided over the grand sacrificial ceremony for the expeditionary soldiers of the Eastern expedition. And the royal court also has the beautiful girls in the 4 guarding tribes, all wearing the most gorgeous and beautiful clothes, wearing the most beautiful headdresses and jewelry, to welcome these triumphant warriors. These beautiful Indian girls naturally excite many expeditionary soldiers who have just grown up. As for how many people will become a pair at night, the stone bear is unknown. After the grand sacrificial ceremony, Chief Junaruska personally announced that a grand bonfire dinner was held to welcome the expeditionary soldiers who had returned triumphantly. The entire Cherokee palace was completely plunged into a carnival. This is the Cree who was defeated by you and then returned to our tribe. Outside the king's big tent is a noisy bonfire dinner. And inside the king's big tent is naturally the same smell of wine and meat. Sitting in a stone bear, Junaluska next to him pointed to the bighorn sheep sitting opposite and asked in a low voice in Shi Xiong's ear. The bighorn sheep is a foreigner, although he is now surrendered, if in peacetime, let alone sitting here. He doesn't even have the qualifications to enter the king's court. But today is to celebrate the triumphant soldiers, and the bighorn sheep is the right arm of the stone bear in this eastward march. Although there is no great contribution, there is no credit and hard work, so today he and the stone bear and Junaruska, the high priest of Bakarzut, and the leaders of the Red City Alliance and the White City Alliance sat in a seat. Shi Xiong looked at the bighorn sheep who was eating, and the corners of his mouth pursed slightly, then he nodded with certainty and said, "Yes, my chief." Although the bighorn sheep came from the Cree clan, and at the beginning, he has fought with me twice, but this guy has very good potential. I am very optimistic about this guy. I think he can stand alone for our tribe in the future. Shi Xiong's voice is not small. Everyone here has heard it. Suddenly, a dozen high-level Cherokees' eyes gathered on the bighorn sheep who was eating and chewing. Of course the bighorn sheep heard this too. He put down the roasted turkey leg that was roasted in his hand and wiped the corner of his mouth with his sleeve. Huadi stood up and said loudly, "Dear Chief, Honorable the High Priest, as well as the respected guardian and you adults, yes, I am the Cree bighorn sheep who has been defeated twice by the guardian. I have now completely and sincerely returned to the Cherokee clan. At this point, I can make my oath to the great Sun God. I hope that in the future, I can lay a world for our tribe with Master Guardian. I hope that I can dedicate all my strength to the power of the tribe." The words of bighorn sheep are decisive and decisive. The most important thing is that his vision is full of firmness, without a trace of avoidance or humility. This made the Cherokee executives around him nodded in satisfaction. Shi Xiong smiled and said, "Bighorn sheep, sit down quickly. You don't need to be loyal in this kind of occasion. You only need to show your results in future battles." The bighorn sheep nodded very surely, and did not speak any more, but picked up the half-eaten turkey leg and continued to chew it. The high priest Bakarzut, who was sitting on the other side of the stone bear, said with a smile, "This bighorn sheep is a man of good temperament, and I am more optimistic about this guy." Chief Junaruska smiled on his face, but he still asked Shi Xiong in a low voice, "Guardian www.wuxiaspad.com putting a foreigner in such an important position, do you think it's okay? Our tribe has many excellent fighters, such as Bone Spears and they are all excellent, and after the training of the Expedition Cree tribe, even this bighorn sheep was defeated in their hands. Why not use our own people but a Cree?" Although he had a smile on his face, his tone was full of doubts. Shi Xiong smiled slightly, and also whispered, "My chief, I hope you just say this to me, not to others. The Expeditionary Army was created by me. I naturally know who can use it and what people can't use it. All of this is for the lives of the expeditionary soldiers, and also for the sake of future victory. Don't worry, since I dare to choose bighorn sheep, then I will take all the responsibilities for him." Chief Junaruska heard this, although the smile on his face was still the same, but his eyes flashed a light of embarrassment, unwillingness and even resentment. Almost everyone, including Stone Bear, didn't see the light flashing in Chief Junaruska's eyes. But the bighorn sheep who was eating and happily looking up inadvertently seemed to have the line of sight. it inadvertently swept through the eyes of Lord Chief. Chapter 389, Tribute from the People. Master Guardian, our Chief Junaruska seems to have an opinion on you. You have to be careful. On the morning of the third day after the celebration of dinner, Stone Bear led some expeditionary soldiers and began to return to the Gaoshu tribe. On the way, the Bighorn Sheep who was riding a horse beside the Stone Bear whispered, "There are not many people around them. Most of the recruits of the expeditionary army are selected from the 4 guardian tribes. After the Eastern expedition is over, they naturally want to stay with their families. Only some veterans from the Gaoshu tribe and the Crooked Deer tribe will follow the Stone Bear to return to the foot of the Great Smog Mountain." Shi Xiong glanced at the Bighorn Sheep, and said in a low voice, "Bighorn Sheep, don't think I am new to you. You can slander our chief." "Master Guardian, I'm telling the truth." The Bighorn Sheep immediately became a little anxious when he heard this, but he lowered his voice again and said, "Master Guardian, you should understand me. What do you think? I can swear to the Supreme Sun and all the gods, my Bighorn Sheep will only follow you in this life, because only you are the one who can convince my Bighorn Sheep." Shi Xiong glanced at the fidgeting Bighorn Sheep, smiled and waved his hand and interrupted him in a low voice, "Bighorn Sheep, I know who you are best, and I can let you be my deputy. This is what I am to you. I believe in your words, but that is our current chief after all. So, you can tell me some things, but you must not let outsiders know these words. This is good for you, and it is also a protection for you. Do you understand?" The Bighorn Sheep froze for a moment, and then nodded with a wry smile. "My Lord Guardian, I understand what you mean, and I am very grateful for your respect for me. But because of this, I have to say something to you. I hope you can be alert and guarded. Anyway, according to my judgment, the Chief Junaruska seems to have an opinion on you." Shi Xiong smiled and said, "This is normal. In the Far East, in our common ancestors, there is a saying called Gong Jiao Zhenju. Although we have not yet reached that point, we will get there sooner or later, to the point. So, there are some things I will pay attention to. The power is high." The Bighorn Sheep lowered his head and chewed these words carefully. For a long time, a smile appeared on his face. After 7 or 8 days of travel, this part of the expeditionary army arrived on the shore of Big Bend. Compared to when Stone Bear fleeing with Jiao Naiu 2 years ago, crossing the Big Bend also requires big feet to lead the soldiers of the Gaoshu tribe to cross the river in a canoe. Now there are 3 pontoon bridges erected on the Big Bend. The Big Bend, regarded as a moat, has now become a smooth road. When Shi Xiong arrived in front of the pontoon bridges, 3 or 4 ox carts on each pontoon bridge were walking from the north bank of the river to the south bank of the river, pulling full of iron ore. The reason why 3 pontoons were erected on Big Bend is that on the north bank of Big Bend, David Adian discovered an iron ore with larger reserves and a coal mine with equally large reserves. Because the Big Bend is a natural barrier, before the development of long-range powerful offensive weapons or defensive weapons, it is impossible for the Gaoshu tribe to put such a dangerous river as a barrier. So under the arrangement of the Stone Bear, the original Dikingshan nearby mining of that iron ore and coal mine was suspended, and the mine and iron ore on the other side of the Big Bend were mined in full. So there were 3 more pontoons above the Big Bend. And with these 3 pontoons, the coal mine and iron ore on the north bank of Big Bend are closer to the original Dikingshan tribe, so the development of this coal and iron ore has become one of the current important tasks of the Gaoshu tribe. The current steel base of the Gaoshu tribe, the location of the original Dikingshan tribe, is more lively than before. Dozens of water wheels lined up on the bank of the river, providing a steady stream of power for this thriving steel base. More earth blast furnaces are like giant monster guards, spewing out a lot of smoke all day long. There were no environmentalists at this time, and the smoke from such a blast furnace could not have much impact on this world that has not yet begun the Industrial Revolution. And a large number of Gaoshu tribe people are also busy here day and night, providing the Gaoshu tribe with a steady stream of steel. This lively sight alone is enough to make people feel satisfied. Seeing the soldiers of the expeditionary army appear on the north side of the pontoon, The people of the busy Gaoshu tribe cheered, the melodious horn sounded, and the same horn sounded in the distance. Using different horns to transmit information, this is also Shi Xiong's long-distance way of transmitting information before he got Mr. Bird. Although this method is sometimes easy to transmit wrong information, it has to be said that this method of transmitting information is really fast. From the Dikingshan tribe to the Gaoshu tribe, the straight-line distance is at least more than 20 kilometers. It only takes less than a minute to convey the news of the expeditionary soldiers returning home triumphantly. The tribesmen and ox carts who were waiting to cross the river all gave way to the expeditionary soldiers. These triumphant soldiers should be the fastest to cross the river. Amidst the cheers of the people, the soldiers of the Expeditionary Army crossed the Big Bend from the pontoon www.wuxiaspot.com, and then they could see a paved concrete road extending from the steel base to the direction of the Gaoshu tribe. Now this concrete road has been completely repaired. From the High Tree tribe to the steel base, if you ride a horse, it only takes half an hour. Even if it's an ox cart, it only takes more than 2 hours. This is much shorter than the time required to travel between the two tribes for half a day. Now on this concrete road, there are a large number of bullock carts and even horse-drawn four-wheeled carts running fast every day. The small tribes that have been separated from the tribe have all been retaken by the Gaoshu tribe, and now it has a large number of the people. It's just that there are basically no people on foot on the concrete road from the Gaoshu tribe to the steel base. They now go back and forth between the Gaoshu tribe and the steel base by ox carts or horse-drawn four-wheeled carts. When the expeditionary soldiers were preparing to return to the Gaoshu tribe along this concrete road, the tribesmen who were originally riding in the bullock cart or four-wheeled cart got out of the car one after another. They wanted to give up all their seats to triumph, returned expeditionary soldiers. The two expeditions of the Expeditionary Army brought unparalleled glory to the clansmen of the Gaoshu tribe. Now that the soldiers have returned, they have no way to express them. They can only use this simplest action to express their respect for the soldiers of the Expeditionary Army. Under the kind invitation of the tribe, the originally neat line quickly turned into a long ox cart and carriage. This winding and long motorcade is slowly advancing along this concrete road towards the Gaoshu tribe, surrounded by a large number of cheering tribes. Chapter 390. Later, when approaching the Gaoshu tribe, more and more people appeared. When the team reached the edge of the Gaoshu tribe, they saw a group of high-level officials from the Gaoshu tribe, under the leadership of the Kabru high priest, standing on the roadside to greet them. Among these people, only one figure firmly attracted the stone bearer's sight, and it was naturally the green sky lark. Just why is this girl so quiet? Just stand there looking at yourself with a smile, and say a good hug? What about the good kiss? Why is it all gone? This is not like the character of this girl. Thinking back to the breakthrough development between the two after returning from the last expedition, Shi Xiong's heart couldn't help but feel hot. Just how did this girl become so quiet? Could it be that the change from a girl to a woman is really such a big change? Don't care, let's hug first. If you don't come, you will be the only one. After getting off the horse, Shi Xiong didn't even have time to say hello to Hong Yun, Jiao Naiu, and Big Feet. 3 steps changed into 2 steps. After a few strides, he ran to Green Skylark's side, and he stretched out his arms to hug him. As a result, Green Skylark squinted and prevented the stone bear from embracing. In addition, there was a troublemaker next to him, who suddenly emerged from between the two and yelled "Son!" The stone bear stretched out his hands like this. Tep looked at his daughter-in-law with a dazed expression on his face. Well, why is this lady standing like this? Why are these hands always protecting her belly? The stone bear is even more confused. The green lark is smaller and more brilliant, and with a small mouth. He said something that made the stone bear almost fly to the sky. "Dolly bear, you are going to be a dad. I have a baby in my stomach." Hong Yun said yes. More than 2 months. What did you say? Shi Xiong was really confused this time, and even the native dialect of his hometown came out. But when he saw the same awkward expression of Green Skylark, he immediately asked in ethnic language, "Daughter-in-law, You said I'm going to be a father. Green Skylark understood these words, and immediately nodded with a big smile. Now the soul of Shi Xiong really flew into the sky, and he stood there and stared at the belly of Green Skylark in a daze, without moving for a while. Even Tep yelled and wanted to ask for a hug, but was kicked aside by a big foot of the stone bear subconsciously. Guardian, guardian, the sound in his ear seemed to be coming from the horizon. Shi Xiong squeezed his eyes, shook his head, and turned his head to find that Hong Yun was standing tall with big feet, accompanied by him, standing beside him with a smile. Of course, Bigfoot and Jiao Naiu are also smiling. Guardian, there is a doll in the belly of Green Skylark. This was known a few days ago. I have shown it, and the grandmother in the tribe has also shown it. There is indeed a doll, Hong Yun said with a smile. Bigfoot also smiled and said, Guardian, congratulations on becoming a dad. As for Jiao Naiu, although there is a smile on his face, there seems to be a trace of tears in his eyes. Although he didn't say anything, he slapped the stone bear on the shoulder a few times. There is no doubt that Jiao Naiu, the uncle of Shi Xiong, is also deeply happy that his nephew has a future. Shi Xiong took a step, carefully squatted down in front of Green Skylark, carefully touched her belly with both hands, and asked with a look that was still like a dream, Really? Your belly is really real? Do you have a baby? Am I really going to be a father? Here, Green Skylark smiled and nodded again, just about to say something. Tep, who had been kicked by the girl just now, flopped over, put his arms around his father's neck, and stuck his tongue out to his face. Licking, still moaning in his throat, seemed very dissatisfied that the old man kicked himself away just now. Suddenly, Shi Xiong laughed loudly, put his arms around Tep, and slashed his hands on this guy's head, and said with a smile, Don't lick you kid, you will be a big brother from now on. Be like a brother, understand? Tep was dizzy and swollen with his father, and he stared at his father with small eyes. If it hadn't been for the happy mood of the old man clearly, I guess this guy would have screamed again. In his previous life and this life, Shi Xiong never thought about being a father, let alone what would happen if he had a child. As a result, I didn't expect the Green Skylark to become pregnant after more than 2 months of crusade. This sudden news immediately gave Shi Xiong a feeling that he had never felt before. Is it pride, still happy, or is it worried, perplexed, and determined? Anyway, it really became what was described in the novel. At that moment, it was really full of flavors. I had never thought about being a father before, but suddenly, the words child and father were placed before my eyes. The blood inheritance deeply embedded in the genes seemed to be at this moment erupted. Even the information on various pregnant women I have read in my previous life, and the information on how to raise a fetus, jumped out of that corner without knowing it for a moment. Let's go, daughter-in-law, let's go home and rest. It's only more than 2 months now, and it's time for stability. Slow down, don't be so violent. The fetus is at the most unstable time at this time. At that time, a sneeze may cause a child to miscarry. Shi Xiong began to mutter in Green Skylark's ears, and it was too late to say hello to Hong Yun and the others, so he held Green Skylark's arm slowly, walked to his house. What do you say is a fetus? The fetus is the baby in your belly. www.wuxiaspa.com. But he has not been born yet, so he is called a fetus. Well, miscarriage is a very terrible thing. Generally speaking, pregnant women are most likely to have a miscarriage during the first trimester of pregnancy. Once a miscarriage occurs, the baby in the belly cannot be kept, and the pregnant woman will be affected. The body has a big impact. Huh? What do you mean by a pregnant woman? Oh, aren't you a pregnant woman now? Pregnant? Well, I just want a woman like you with a baby in her belly, called a pregnant woman, or a pregnant woman for short. I'll tell you, my daughter-in-law, in the future, you must not only act carefully to avoid miscarriage caused by strenuous exercise, but also pay attention to nutritional supplements. Huh? What do you mean by nutritional supplements? Cough. This nutritional supplement is to eat more. Eat more. It's best to eat everything. Well, don't forget that you still have a baby in your stomach. That guy is very edible, so if you supplement if it's uneven, The dolls in your stomach will also be hungry. Would you like to make our dolls hungry too? That's right, so you eat more. Seeing that the tall, brave and invincible guardian suddenly became so cautious, Hong Yun, Bigfoot, and Jiao Naiu couldn't help but shook their heads with a smile. Jiao Naiu even sighed heavily. Big Stone, this guy finally has a future, I can rest assured as an uncle. P.S. Bowen thanked Anxian for your reward. Chapter 391. No wonder the Guardian is so crazy. Honorable Guardian, I have to come. Lord Chief has given a death order. Let me persuade you to go to the Kaza people if I say anything. I really can't help it, so I came here to find you. Shi Xiong looked at the bitter bone spear in front of him. He didn't pay attention to what he had just said. Instead, he patted the wooden stool beside him vigorously, and said with a smile, "Come on, Bone Spear, since it's here, don't talk about those things. If it's not interesting, accompany me and 2 cups, and we have a good chat. Since the expedition to the Cree, it seems that we have not met each other." Bone Spear smiled bitterly again, but in the end he sat down honestly on the wooden bench next to Shi Xiong, watching Master Guardian pouring himself a bowl of mellow liquor with great interest, and then nodded, said, "Yes, Lord Guardian, we have not met since you left there with the high levels of the Cree tribe. When you fought the Powhatan, I was still in the Cree tribe, wiping your butt." Shi Xiong smiled, picked up the wine bowl in front of him, and raised it at the Bone Spear. "Come on, Bone Spear, take a sip to warm up your body. You haven't drunk this stuff before, know the benefits of this thing, right?" A happy smile appeared on Bone Spear's face, and he also picked up the pure and transparent wine bowl that exudes a strong aroma of wine. "My Lord Guardian, since you left the Cree, my brothers and I have always wanted to do it again. I drank this kind of wine. It's been several months, and I can finally have a sip today. Let me respect it first." The wine bowl is not too big. One bowl can hold half a caddy of wine. The 2 big men smiled and touched the bowl. When they raised their heads, the half caddy of wine was eaten down. So happy to say that the wine you make is the best to drink, Master Guardian. I really hope that I can be with you every day, so that I can drink this delicious wine every day. Bone Spear putting down the wine bowl, he let out a long sigh, then smiled and praised. "Haha, it's not easy to want to drink. Tomorrow when you leave, take some more home, enough for you to drink in the winter." Shi Xiong said differently, "This year is another bumper year. Last year's grain output was scary enough, but compared with this year's grain output, it was a drizzle. Therefore, the amount of wine brewed by the Gaoshu tribe this year is exceptionally large, and because of sufficient food and sweet potatoes, most of the wines brewed this year are high-quality wines. Those low-grade wines with fruit wine aromas are all for the little girls in the tribe." Hearing Shi Xiong's words, Bone Spear's original excited expression immediately turned bitter, and he smiled bitterly. "My Lord Guardian, are you really not planning to send troops?" Shi Xiong glared at Bone Spear, and his whole body shuddered with that look. Bone Spear is the leader of the Bone Spear tribe, one of the 4 guardian tribes of the Cherokee royal court. Even in the Cherokee royal court, it is also a first-class figure. However, in the expeditionary army, Bone Spear was only an initial captain-level figure. When he was trained at the beginning, he was drilled by the Stone Bear very hard, plus the invincible miracle of Lord Guardian. Bone the Spear worships the Guardian very much. Bone Spear, it's not that I said you are also a captain anyway. Next time I am going to mention you up again, let you lead a regiment alone. But look at what you just said. Send troops? Do you think sending troops in this weather is a good thing? Bone Spear smiled bitterly, shook his head, and argued, "But this is the order of Chief Junaruska." Boom. With a slap, Shi Xiong slapped a wooden table made of heavy solid wood. Even though the wooden table was so heavy and thick, it was still slapped by the slap. "If not just now, the 2 have just drunk the wine in the bowl. I am afraid there is not much wine left in the bowl. Fortunately, you are still a high-level officer of the expeditionary army. Wouldn't you tell the chief? Our expeditionary army must maintain mobility. Without mobility, Our expeditionary army is the meat on the human flesh, and we also need weapons. The wide field of vision is able to exert the greatest power, but in this kind of weather that is full of thick fog and locks the sky, we don't have a shooting field of vision. What if we encounter an enemy? Do we have to put the enemy into a distance of 50 meters and then fight? There is also this snow. This winter is extremely cold, and there have been several heavy snowfalls in succession. Do you think our expeditionary army can maintain how strong it is in this kind of weather where the snow reaches your knees after 1 foot is down? Mobility. Without the shooting vision and mobility, our expeditionary force pulls out to give people a head. Is this kind of heaven sending troops to let Lao Tzu die? Ahem. Bone Spear coughed awkwardly. Master Guardian, Master Chief may be impatient. Don't intercede for the Chief. Shi Xiong unceremoniously interrupted Bone Spear. You know the situation of the expeditionary army best. The Chief doesn't know the situation of our expeditionary army. Don't you know? Don't you know how to explain to the Chief? I think, as long as you explain, with the shrewdness and wisdom of the Chief, he will definitely not let us send troops in this weather. I explained it, and I didn't explain it once or twice. The Chief was still angry when I explained it the last time. Didn't I have to come over to you? Shi Xiong glanced at the Bone Spear obliquely, and said angrily, Bone Spear, we are old brothers. We fought fiercely with the Cree people together. The entire Cree family was shot down by us. So, don't say anything like this in the future. Don't force me to just break his leg like the guy who came to deliver the Chief's order last time. Hearing this, the bitter smile on Bone Spear's face grew stronger. I said, Lord Guardian, the last time I came was Cuckoo, another warrior guarding the tribe in our royal court. www.wuxiaspad.com. How did you get here? Has it become a broken leg here? Deserve it. Shi Xiong took a bitterly spit, and then he picked up the wine jar while pouring the wine and explained, the guy came here and said pretentiously to me, Lord Chief ordered you to take the expeditionary army westward. Chikasha. I explained to the guy that he could not go out in this weather, and he could only go out after the beginning of spring next year. I explained to him in detail why no troops can be sent out in this weather, and I promise next spring, it will take 2 months at most to take down the Chikasha. Bone Spear, do I mean enough? Bone Spear nodded happily. If this explanation doesn't work, then I really can't think of any explanation. But do you know what that guy said? The guy saw that I didn't obey the order, and even threatened me that if I didn't follow the order, he would lead the elite warriors of the 4 guarding tribes to come and level my tribe. Who does he think he is? He even banned my tribe. This is the tribe of Kabru High Priest, who gave him the courage to say such things. Don't forget, I'm co-guardian of the High Priest Brew. Dare to say such things in front of me. Doesn't he know how the dead words are written? If it weren't for the fact that he was an envoy sent by the Chief, I would have done it a long time ago. He died instead of just breaking his legs to warn him. Bone Spear really couldn't find any reason to refute it. No wonder the Guardian is so mad. You are stupid in front of the Guardian and said that you will destroy the tribe of the Kabru High Priest. If the Guardian is willing to, if you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 392, Provoking the Dignity of the Chief. But if you don't send troops, then Chief Junaruska will be very upset. After all, Bone Spear is the captain of the expeditionary force who has been with the Stone Bear for nearly a year. According to the new expeditionary force, he was previously at the battalion commander level. When the expeditionary force is reorganized in the future, the Bone Spear will inevitably become one of the 4 regiment commanders. Therefore, for the Guardian, the Bone Spear is more of obedience and respect in the heart, and he dares to say such things. For the Bone Spear, Ishikamo also appreciates it. This guy is not only the tribal leader of the Bone Spear tribe, one of the 4 guardian tribes of the king's court, but he also performed extremely well in the expeditionary army. It requires personal strength, and personal strength, and commands to have command ability. Although it is still impossible to compete with Krek compared with the bighorn sheep, Lulu is also very good, and he will definitely be able to take his own role in the future. Moreover, Stone Bear said this to Bone Spear. After all, he has another identity, that is, the tribal leader of the 4 guardian tribes of the Cherokee royal court. Naturally, it is inevitable for him to say this. So Shi Xiong smiled and said, "It's nothing. When you go back and tell the chief in detail, I think the chief will not mind. The guy who came last time really annoyed me, so I did that. This is what I did. Since you're here, I think I have explained it clearly enough. As long as you can clearly explain why you cannot send troops in this season, Lord Chief should understand." But a sharp Bone Spear rarely hesitated. "Say it happily if you have something to say. We brothers don't have a lot of talk and talk." Shi Xiong frowned and said. Bone Spear struck a sharp spirit, and then quickly said, "But before I came, the chief specifically told me that I must convey his order to you, that is, immediately send troops to deal with the Chicashes in the west." These words made Shi Xiong's brows frown again. He considered for a while before asking, "Bone Spear, we are brothers who came down from the battlefield. There are some things you can't hide from me, right? Of course, you are my boss, and I am your subordinate. As long as I know your questions, I will not hide your questions." Bone Spear patted his chest and said, "Then, I ask you, is there something happening in the north and west? For example, what is the big move of the Shawnee in the north, or the Mississippi and the Kentucky and Chickasaw in the west have joined forces?" Well, second, it shouldn't be a possibility. After all, the Mississippi and the Kentucky had just joined forces to beat the Chickasaw. They haven't tangled with each other yet, so they probably won't join forces. It should be the Shawnee from the north. Is there any action? No, Master Guardian. The Shawnees in the north did a little bit before we marched eastward, but that is also a normal situation. After all, we killed the Korean just over 3 months. It is inevitable for the Nepalese to be defensive, but after we hurriedly killed the Pointons, the Shawnees became honest immediately, and they are very stable now. At least before I came, I didn't listen. Let's talk about what happened to the Shawnees in the north. As for the situation in the west, the situation is similar to what you just analyzed. Although the Chickasaws and the Mississippi and the Kentucky people in the west are no longer fighting, they are still facing each other. It should be the Mississippi. The Kentuckians and the Kentuckians tasted the benefits of the Chickasaws, and they seemed a little unwilling to withdraw like this. But we suddenly exerted strength this year and made them feel scared, so they temporarily calmed down. Bone Spear was very careful, explained. That's not right. Shi Xiong picked up the wine bowl and touched the Bone Spear. After drinking half a bowl in one gulp, he said, "Since the north and west are calm, Lord Chief has no reason to let us in this season. I will do it against the Chickasaws." Bone Spear, before you came, were there any messengers from other tribes in the royal court? I mean the messengers from Shawnee, Mississippi, or Kentucky? No, I'm sure of this. Besides, it's freezing cold, and their envoys will not be able to come to our royal court in this season. After all, we haven't done anything against them. Bone Spear replied simply, also very sure. This. Shi Xiong licked his teeth, looked up at Bone Spear and asked, "Since it's not a matter of the surrounding tribes, the chief still asked me to send troops so strongly, inside. Bone Spear nodded slightly and said, "Master Guardian, I think it may be the last time you interrupted Dimerka's leg, which made the chief annoyed, and he made such a decision." Yes, you may not know the matter. The Dimerka who came last time is not only Kui, another warrior guarding the tribe, he is also the son of the chieftain's sister. Yeah, how dare that guy say that kind of thing? It turns out that this has a background, Shi Xiong said with a sneer. Master Guardian, don't underestimate this. Chief is very vengeful. And Dimerka grew up with Chief, and Chief loves this guy very much. That's not okay. Dare to insult High Priest Kabru in front of me. I really think High Priest Kabru, is a decoration? My guardian has not only passed the personal confession of High Priest Kabru, but even Rikar, the High Priest Lazu also admitted this. Kuku, a warrior, dared to say such a thing. I didn't kill him. He already gave the chief a lot of face. But Bone Spear hesitated again www.wuxiaspot.com but immediately said, "From my observation, the chief seems to feel that you interrupted Dimerka's legs and disobeyed orders. Very angry, he thinks that you are provoking his dignity as a chief. And I saw Lord Chief angry. I think Lord Chief seems a little dissatisfied with you." "Not satisfied." "So what?" Shi Xiong asked non-committal. Immediately he said very firmly, "Bone Spear, when you go back, you will tell the chief exactly what I said to you today. I have a clear conscience for what I have done, and I have a clear conscience for what I have done for us. The development of the tribe is desperate. If the chief thinks that I have done wrong, thinks that I have provoked his dignity, or thinks that I am not suitable for the leader of the expeditionary army, then he can deprive me of the position of the leader of the expeditionary army, and I will take the expeditionary army." Was completely handed over to the chief, but in this season, it is not responsible for the expeditionary soldiers and the future of the entire tribe. Forgive me for not being able to carry out the chief's order. I can't count. The lives of the brothers of the 1,000 expeditionary forces are more important than the dignity of the chief. I cannot do things that endanger the lives of the brothers because of the dignity of the chief. If I want to send troops, I will send troops after the beginning of the spring next year, which is also early as planned. Bone Spear, you can tell the chieftain these words as they are. As for what he does, I don't care. P.S. Lao Mo, who is forced to go on a business trip tomorrow morning. The plane at 8 o'clock. Lao Mo will depart from home at 4:30. Who makes this broken city even have an airport? These 2 chapters are posted in advance. Chapter 393, 1766 Bear Rifle. Bone Spear left with a lot of anxiety. Failure to complete the task assigned by the chief was one of the sources of his anxiety, and more importantly, he was really worried about the Guardian. But it's no use worrying anymore. The one-of-a-kind Guardian seems to be determined not to send troops in winter. Actually, Bone Spear felt something wrong with the chief's strange command, and Bone Spear seemed to have realized something, but he didn't dare to think deep. He was scared. After watching the dozen or so guards who followed Bone Spear gradually disappear at the end of the concrete road, the Bighorn Sheep said with a playful smile on his face, "Boss, your chief seems to be right. You are suspicious. You have to pay attention." Shi Xiong glanced at the Bighorn Sheep slantingly, and said angrily, "Just take care of your own affairs. You'd better not get involved with this kind of thing." "Cut, boss, it's not that I said you worked so hard. That guy is still suspicious of you. Do you think it's worth it?" The Bighorn Sheep's tone was full of something called disdain. Shi Xiong was silent. "Boss, don't blame me for not reminding you. I knew your chief earlier than you. When I met your chief as the royal envoy of the Cree tribe, I saw your chief. It's not a generous person, and this guy feels very bad to me. At the beginning, I just brought a request from the crown of the Cree family, and he directly captured you from the tribe. The chief who can't even defend his own tribe." Tut. Shi Xiong continued silently. "Boss, don't think I'm verbose. Don't think I'm provoking. I'm just talking about the matter. I have already sworn allegiance to you, so I must consider your future." The Bighorn Sheep looked very sincerely at the Guardian who was sitting silently on Huofan's back, and continued very seriously, "Boss, I think you should do some necessary work." "What is your name in your words?" "Here?" "Yes, plan ahead." "On the surface, it looks like your chief is venting his anger, because you broke his nephew's legs and rejected his order. But you really need to think about it carefully. Who dare to say that this is not the chief who has a small belly and chicken intestines is looking for a reason for himself?" "Boss, don't look at the chief who can do nothing about you now. It is because you control the expeditionary army. But once you have something wrong, for example, after a small defeat, I am afraid that what happened this time will be taken back from you by the chief of yours." Shi Xiong remained silent. The Bighorn Sheep continued, "Boss, in fact, I have never understood, with your strength and the status of the High Tree tribe, why don't you replace it? The High Tree tribe is the tribe of the Kabru High Priest. There is Kabu here, High Priest Louis sitting in town. First of all, in name, you are not lacking. Secondly, As for the soldiers of the 4 guarding tribes of your royal court, I don't think it is much better than the 4 guarding tribes of the Cree tribe. All of the grenadiers are fighters of your Gaoshu tribe, and all the guns in the expeditionary army are in the Gaoshu tribe. As long as you control the grenadiers and guns, no one can stop you. Boss, I think you should. Bighorn Sheep, you are too much. Shi Xiong did not remain silent this time, but said lightly, and the Bighorn Sheep suddenly stopped speaking. The 2 pulled the horse rein and began to turn their heads back. When they were about to reach the tribe, the Bighorn Sheep said again, Boss, I remember you once told me a story about a master of great power. I don't know the one you told, whether the story is true or not, but my boss, I think you should really guard against the high-powered things that happen to you. But what made Bighorn Sheep a little disappointed is that his guardian Sama continued to be silent. As if it was a child playing a house. The incident subsided after Bone Spear returned. No envoy from the royal court urged Stone Bear to lead his troops on the expedition. Everything is like the Appalachian Mountains in this winter. He quickly returned to peace. To Shi Xiong's delight, breakthroughs have been made in the development of the new rifle, and good news has come from Colonel Jones. The 500 horses have been assembled. In a few days, Major Fogg will leading some soldiers in Jamestown to drive these war horse tribes to trade. The research and development of the new rifle has been overcome by the joint efforts of Jack Williams and David Adian Alchemist, and the fixed-mounted paper shell bullets fired by the Flash Hider are also being used by Augusta Westland. And the efforts of Bill Gates completed the process of large-scale production. In fact, the research and development of new rifles is not difficult. The key lies in the process of large-scale industrial production. The 3 keys to the new rifle, the barrel, the trigger and the ammunition, are the key to restricting the mass production of the new rifle. Because the lead bullet with a cylindrical round head is used, it is necessary to ensure that the trajectory of the bullet is stable when it is launched. The 6 rifle design in the barrel of the Ferguson rifle is no longer good. If you want to make the trajectory of the warhead more stable, let the longer the effective range of the bullet, it is necessary to increase the number of rifling in the barrel. Under such circumstances, Williams has transformed the wire drawing machine tool. With today's technology, the rifling in the barrel has been increased to an extreme 14 lines. And under the guidance of the Stone Bear, Williams began to use the rifling twist formula to calculate the rifling twist. However, because the bullet's warhead is not made of relatively hard copper www.wuxiaspa.com but is made of softer lead, even Williams has found a best entanglement. But because the lead bullet was worn out due to friction with the rifling when it moved in the barrel, so the effective range of the bullet did not reach the theoretical maximum ejection speed and the farthest effective range. But anyway, after adding H rifling and changing the rifling twist, the new rifle with lead-headed bullets fixed in a paper shell has an effective range of 760 yards when it is tested. That is a distance of more than 700 meters. This effective range has exceeded the original Dreiser rifle in historical time and space. Although it has not reached the terrifying effective range of the Saibo rifle of 800 meters, it is also unique in this era. And because of the modification of the bolt and the use of the flash hider, the firing life of this new rifle will never be as short as that of the Dreiser rifle. In addition to being unable to compare with the Saibo rifle, other aspects are no less inferior to the Saibo rifle. And because the caliber of the new rifle is still 14 mm, which is larger than the 11 mm caliber of the Shaspo rifle, the warhead weight of the new rifle is greater than that of the Shaspo rifle, and its lethality should be higher than the original history Saibo rifle in time and space. Anyway, the power of this new rifle is almost invincible in this era. Ishikama named this rifle 1766 Bear Rifle, Chapter 394, Lack of People. After the new rifle was successfully tested, Shi Xiong decided to start mass production of this rifle. Of course, the so-called mass production, in terms of current production capacity and technical capabilities, is like producing 5 or 6 rifles a day. This is still the speed after using 10 water wheels as power. There is no way. Before the improved steam engine appeared, hydraulic power was the best power. Are you looking for a chance for the four great alchemists to get the improved steam engine out? Shi Xiong looked at the scene where the gears were turning hard under the drive of the water wheel, and an idea popped into his mind. When later generations mentioned the name steam engine, the first name that came to mind in 99% of people was Watt. Most people in later generations believed that the steam engine was invented by Watt. This is actually a wrong perception. Watt only improved the steam engine. The steam engine was not invented by Watt. Ishikama was a museum staff member in his previous life. He naturally knew that the world's first steam-powered machine actually appeared as early as the 1st century BC. It was a thing called steam ball. Hiro was a great mathematician and inventor in ancient Rome. Because of the influence of the works of Ctesibius, he invented many things in his life. For example, a wind wheel that uses wind power as power, such as a steam ball that uses steam as power. In fact, the steam ball is just a toy invented by Hiro. That is, a hollow ball and a closed pot filled with water are connected by two hollow tubes, and the water at the bottom of the pot is heated to boil and then turns into steam. Then the tube enters the ball, and finally water vapor will be ejected from both sides of the ball and make the ball rotate. The steam spinning ball is a relatively novel toy for Hiro, and has no practical use, but academically speaking, this steam spinning ball is recognized as the prototype of the world's first steam engine. The French physicist Denis Barbin built the first working model of the steam engine in 1679 after observing the steam escaping from his pressure cooker. In 1698, Thomas Saville and Thomas Newcomen built early industrial steam engines. And at this time, Watt has not been born yet. James Watt is famous because he used scientific theories to make a series of improvements and inventions on the previously inefficient steam engines, such as a separate condenser, an insulation layer outside the cylinder, oil-lubricated pistons, and planetary gears, parallel motion linkage mechanism, centrifugal governor, throttle valve, pressure gauge, etc., which increased the efficiency of the steam engine to more than 3 times that of the original old steam engine, and finally invented the real industrial steam engine. Therefore, Mr. Watt only improved the steam engine, not the steam engine he invented. Although Ishikama was not an engineering student in his previous life, I learned the working principle of the steam engine as early as in junior high school. Ishikama has not seen an advanced steam engine, so he is definitely better than Watt in understanding the steam engine. Shi Xiong remembers that in 1765 last year, Watt had already begun to improve the steam engine. At this time, Watt should have separated the condenser and cylinder of the old Newcomen steam engine so that the temperature of the cylinder can be maintained at the temperature of the injected steam, and on this basis, a model that could run continuously was quickly built. But it is still a few years before Watt produced the first industrial steam engine. If Shi Xiong is willing, he can come up with the first industrial steam engine in Watt. It's just that if you want to develop a steam engine now, it's really not enough. The 4 great alchemists are busy making new guns and developing real small caliber mortars. They also have other responsibilities. For example, Jean Augusta is still training cowpox vaccinators. Augusta's work is also very important. Smallpox is too vicious. Shi Xiong didn't want his soldiers to have an overwhelming advantage on the battlefield, but was annihilated by the smallpox virus. There are still few scientific researchers. It seems that this situation can only be changed after the scientists Hank is looking for in Europe. Shi Xiong thought silently. Hank took the blueprints of the new textile machinery that Shi Xiong gave, and now he is making a fortune in the UK and Europe. Of course, he is also responsible for collecting various materials and personnel for Shi Xiong. It is only now that Hank's work has started. Although the prospects and the money are very good, the materials and personnel that Shi Xiong wants will have to wait a while before they can arrive. The reason why Stone Bear gave Colonel Jones the site of the Pamunkey, that is, Norfolk, was to build a port in Norfolk. If you want to trade with European countries, if you don't have a safe and completely owned port, all materials need to pass through the British territory. It is too unsafe. As soon as the British have a crooked mind, or a single-handed war starts, then the Gaoshu tribe without its own port will immediately be choked. Shi Xiong doesn't want to be stuck, so he insists on bringing the Paimanji people over. After all, there is Norfolk of later generations. The most important thing is that it is very close to the British Jamestown and Williamsburg, and it can closely monitor the British every move. Although the state government of Virginia has moved from Jamestown to Williamsburg in the north due to the hurricane problem, www.wuxiaspa.com. The distance between the two is very close, and at this time Jamestown has not been submerged by the river. Jamestown is now the largest port city in Virginia. As long as British ships want to reach Jamestown from the Atlantic Ocean, they must enter the Chesapeake Bay where Jamestown is located. Norfolk is guarded at the mouth of the Chesapeake Bay. The strategic position here is extremely important, but the British haven't found it yet. Once mortars and larger caliber artillery are developed, the entire Chesapeake Bay will become the possession of the High Tree tribe. Later generations of New York Harbor are so awesome. That's because of the existence of the Big Apple of New York. In terms of terrain, the Chesapeake Bay, the largest bay in the United States, is naturally not comparable to the small New York Bay. So the Chesapeake Bay is absolutely in his own hands. Oh, there is still a lack of people. The many thoughts that suddenly popped out in his mind made Shi Xiong realize that he really needs a long way to go to achieve the planned goal. At least this lack of scientific researchers made Shi Xiong anxious. It is said that the most important thing in the 21st century is talents, but how does Lao Tzu feel that what Lao Tzu needs most is also talents? Shi Xiong sighed again, shook his head vigorously, as if he wanted to shake away all the troubles, and then walked back with a wild bird that had just been hit. There is also a big belly at home waiting to drink wild bird soup. What? Chapter 395. Gentleness that adds up to 2 lifetimes. The winter of this year was exceptionally cold. Since entering the long night and full moon, December, there have been several heavy snowfalls in the Gaoshu tribe, especially after entering the first month of the new year, 1767, which is the coldest wolf month of the year, January. It seems to be snowing every day. Shi Xiong used to think that the feather-like snow is an exaggerated description, but now he doesn't say anything. The feather-like snow is a fart. Here is the palm-sized snow film. After a few heavy snowfalls, the entire world seemed to be wrapped in white, especially the undulating mountains, which turned completely white overnight, with no variegated colors. Even the little river on the west side of the tribe has a thick layer of ice. In the past, the people didn't think that it was a major event, and the cat Winter was hiding in the wooden house. But now the river is freezing, and more than a dozen water wheels, large and small, erected on the bank of the river have completely lost their function. Only then did the people realize how important the current is. Thanks to the tireless work of the water wheel, the tribe has become accustomed to leaving a lot of work to the water wheel. But now that the water wheel cannot be used, the people feel very uncomfortable. On the other hand, this is actually an improvement. It's like when Shi Xiong traveled through the previous era, people have fully adapted to electrification, so once the power goes out, most people will feel extremely uncomfortable. The clansmen of the current Gaoshu tribe are actually in such a situation. The application of water power has allowed them to taste the benefits of technological progress, which is a manifestation of the overall progress of society. Shi Xiong felt that it didn't matter. Although his soul came from later generations, the busyness of later generations also allowed Shi Xiong to experience a rare peace on such a snowy day. Especially when there is a daughter-in-law who is pregnant with her child beside him, Shi Xiong is even more reluctant to destroy this kind of peace. Some time ago, the reason why he rejected Chief Junaruska's request for the expeditionary force to send troops twice in a row is that it is really not suitable for sending troops in this season, and the other deep reason is that the Stone Bear is reluctant to leave the Green Lark. In Shi Xiong's view, it is only his own dream to strive for hegemony in the North American New World. It is not a problem to realize it 2 years early or 2 years later. Anyway, this dream will be realized sooner or later. But Green Sky Lark is pregnant, and he's going to be a father. This is an out-and-out big event. In Shi Xiong's eyes, a pregnant wife is even more important than fighting for the hegemony of the world. So since the end of the Eastern expedition, Shi Xiong has gone from an omnipotent, unsmiling, and ruthless battlefield commander to a Sandesi who laughs at everyone, is friendly, and cautiously serves his wife. This drastic change made the entire tribe, including the expeditionary soldiers who stayed in the Gaoshu tribe, feel extremely uncomfortable. Many people even wonder if the great Son of God was possessed by a certain Harpak. How else could the Guardian Master's transformation be so great? This is clearly two people, okay. Even Hong Yun said, "You are the Guardian, the Son of God, how can you become like this?" Similar to this, there are many people who talk about it, including Big Feet, Bobcats, and of course tall cattle. Even some officers of the Expeditionary Army have nothing to do with Shi Xiong. After all, at this time, making fun of the commander will never go crazy, but he will cheerfully pull you to divide your cigarettes and drinks, as long as you are willing to listen to the Guardian Lord nagging about the children and the future things. Then you can smoke cigarettes and drink alcohol for an afternoon with Master Guardian. Of course, the Guardian answered questions like this very simply and succinctly. The sky is big, and the wife with the doll in her belly is the biggest. Other people in the tribe didn't understand why the Guardian had such a big change, but Shi Xiong thought it was normal. After all, he is a man who has lived for 36 years in modern society, and he is still a man who has not found a wife. Now suddenly he has his wife and children. How can Shi Xiong be wrong to his wife? The men who were not good to their daughter-in-law in the past will be kicked away by the woman sooner or later. Shi Xiong didn't want to be kicked away by his wife when he was about to become a father. There is nothing wrong with pampering your wife hard. His performance now can be called the gentleness of his past and present life combined. The words of Master Guardian are justified. Many rough masters have no choice but to do so, but the women in the tribe have a better view of stone bears. In the eyes of these women, is there a better man than a well-behaved man who serves his wife? Obviously, the Guardian, who used to be extremely resolute, and the power of the Guardian, is now a bit invisible, but such a man is an out-and-out good man. The most envious person of women in the tribe is not Hong Yun, nor other high-status and beautiful women. What they admire most is Green Sky Lark, a stone bear who turned into a spoiled wife and a madman, added a touch of warmth to the entire tribe in this cold winter. Even under the influence of the stone bear, some rough old men in the tribe are now trying to learn from the Guardian adults and learn how to spoil their own wives. The entire Gaoshu tribe is even more harmonious. It's just that this harmony came to an abrupt end when a group of sneaky guys came without notice www.wuxiaspot.com when another heavy snow fell one afternoon. Every family in the tribe was about to prepare dinner. Some time ago, Lord Guardian invented a new kind of food to serve his wife. As a result, this kind of food named hot pot by Lord Guardian suddenly became popular in the tribe. Now almost every household can waft out the rich aroma of hot pot every day. Sometimes there are more people who eat hot pot, so the whole tribe will inevitably be enveloped by a strong hot pot aroma. This thing is really good. Simply put an iron pan on the stove, put water in it, add some green onion and ginger, and cut the frozen beef, turkey, lamb and other prey from hunting. Slice into thin slices, wait until the water in the iron pan boils, and throw these cut meat slices into the pan. When the pan boils again, pick up the discolored meat slices, dip them in the prepared seasoning, and serve with a mouthful of wine. It's warm and delicious. It really is not too comfortable. Therefore, since the hot pot thing came out from the Guardian's house, it immediately swept the entire Gaoshu tribe. If the clansmen of the Gaoshu tribe don't cook a pot every day, it would seem like something is missing. But in the afternoon of this day, many people are preparing hot pot in the evening, and the faint horn suddenly sounded. Chapter 396, Strange Alarm Horn. The stone bear, who was eating hot pot with the green sky lark who had just begun to show his affection, naturally heard the sound of the horn. Although the sound transmission will be greatly affected when there is heavy snow in the sky, the sound of the horn is still heard by many clansmen of the Gaoshu tribe, including Stone Bear. It's the horn of warning. How come there are enemies at this time? Green Skylark, as the daughter-in-law of Stone Bear, naturally understands what these 3 short and 1 long horns mean. Don't look at it as the coldest time of the year, but because the Chickasaw and the French jointly attacked the Gaoshu tribe by surprise. Many warriors who went out hunting died in that attack. If it wasn't for Stone Bear to use fireball array to kill the guys who sneaked up, maybe there would be no High Tree tribe in this world at this time. Therefore, since that incident passed, the Gaoshu tribe has begun to set up guard posts in some key areas around the tribe. After 2 years of development, a complete guard network has now been formed around the Gaoshu tribe. Every day, more than 50 tribal warriors go to the 26 security points around the tribe to be on duty. Whether it is windy or rainy, whether it is a hot dog day or a cold 30 or 9 days, each security post is on duty every day. There are 2 tribal warriors on guard, unable to move. Although it has been snowing since the winter last year and the weather has been exceptionally cold, the tribal warriors at the guard sentry have never been missing. Alert: this thing may not happen for months or even years, but once an enemy invades, the alert post will play a great role. At least you can buy more than half an hour for the tribe. Seeing his wife's slightly dissatisfied expression, Shi Xiong smiled and stood up and walked behind Green Sky Lark. He stretched out his hand and gently hugged her. Wen Sheng said, although it is the sound of the alarm horn, but this season is coming to the tribe, obviously looking for death. Not to mention that there are more than 400 soldiers in the tribe, and there are many muskets and grenadiers. Even in this weather, no matter which enemy is coming, it is probably cold enough for us. So, daughter-in-law, you don't have to worry at all. I'll go out and have a look, and I'll be back soon to continue eating hot pot. Green Sky Lark also knows that Stone Bear, as the leader of the expeditionary army, as the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice, is the backbone of this tribe. Now that the enemy is coming, it would be inappropriate if he doesn't come forward. She nodded. Then be careful. If there are many enemies, just use the bullet to bomb. Our weapons are absolutely ahead. There is no need to fight the enemies in close quarters. Yeah, our little Skylark knows how to fight now. Well, yes, you will teach our son in the future. Go. What are you talking nonsense? Green Skylark stroked his belly with glory. How is this nonsense? My child, when the child is born, you tell him that your father asked me to teach you. Haha, you eat slowly. I will go over and see what is going on. Well, then you should be careful. Remember that there are still me and your son waiting for you at home. The Stone Bear laughed and put on his clothes and left the house. As soon as he went out, he saw that the originally peaceful tribe was like a giant beast awakened from a deep sleep. Many well-trained warriors were silently busy, their relatives also silently helped, and the entire tribe seemed to have become a high-speed machine in an instant. After seeing the tall figure appear, this high-speed machine seemed to increase its speed again in an instant. In just a few minutes, rows of soldiers stood in front of the Stone Bear. Because of the busyness just now, a white mist appeared on the foreheads of the soldiers equipped with weapons all over their bodies, which was formed by the evaporation of sweat on their heads. Lynx, is this the alarm horn from that guard post? Shi Xiong asked in a deep voice while hanging the big bow behind his back. Guardian, the sound should be the alarm horn of the stone guard post in the middle of the river. Today, it is Eagle Feather and the 2 cows who are on guard at that post, the lynx said without hesitation. Lynx is a very low-key person, but everyone knows that this man from the long-hair cattle tribe with Master Guardian is actually a very thoughtful person. In the expeditionary army, the Bobcat is just a scout captain, but everyone knows that even the Guardian takes him seriously. After returning to the tribe, the lynx served as the leader of the guard sentry, responsible for the guard and defense of the entire tribe. The Eagle Feather Stone Bear mentioned by the lynx is also very clear that the last time the Chickasaws and the French attacked the Gaoshu tribe, it was the Eagle Feather, Tree Roots, and Branch brothers who first discovered it. Originally they were divided into teams to catch the bison, but they happened to meet the Chickasaws who had just come ashore. They stayed there decisively to deal with the Chickasaws, but the roots and branches of the brothers died there, and the Eagle Feather was seriously injured, finally escaped. One of Eagle Feather's arm was abolished in that battle. After returning, He was amputated by the witch doctor of the tribe. It is considered fatal that he can survive in this era. Therefore, Eagle Feather could not become a soldier of the expeditionary army, so he took on the task of vigilance. He has been doing very well for the past 2 years. Shi Xiong at the Shikang post also knew that it was a position selected by Shi Xiong himself. This outpost is located on a hill over 100 meters away from Gaoshu tribe in a straight line about 5 kilometers. The little river turned several bends at the foot of this hill, and a guard post was set up on this hill to monitor the 3-kilometer section of the river below. It's just that the little river is freezing at this time. Even if the enemy comes, they shouldn't come over the river. Why did the stone guard post sound the alarm horn? This alarm horn is a bit strange. The horn is still ringing. Obviously, this is not something like blowing it by mistake, but an enemy is actually attacking. Otherwise the sound of the horn will not reveal a hint of anxiety. You reading www.hukanshu.com. When Shi Xiong knew this was not ambiguity, he immediately issued an order and said, 100 grenadiers, 100 musketeers, carry their own ammunition supplies, and set off with me. Everyone responded in a sudden. The next moment, the originally quiet tribe suddenly became lively, and the cries of the Mossy people filled the tribe. Everyone was silent just now. It was because the guardian did not give an order. Now the order is issued, everything is fast. Within a few minutes, 200 men carrying their weapons and ammunition rode on 200 war horses. Naturally, the stone bear rides on the back of the fire phoenix with a long bow and a special arrow. Seeing that the soldiers are all picking up their teeth, immediately waved his hand, and rushed out against the heavy snow. Behind him, 200 war horses neighed in bursts, and a thick white gas sprayed from their noses, carrying 200 heavily armed tribal warriors, followed by Huofeng, and plunged into the heavy snow. Chapter 397, The Spaniard Who Almost Froze to Death. The team in front of him. This group of people should not be called a team. Shi Xiong felt that it is appropriate to describe these people as fleeing. Looking at the hundreds of guys who were trembling with cold and frostbite on their faces and hands, Shi Xiong couldn't help feeling that his head was a little big. This is obviously a group of Europeans, but the clothes on them have made Shi Xiong unable to distinguish their identities. The styles of military uniforms of European countries in this era are similar, but they differ in color. The group of guys in front of them are obviously soldiers from a certain European country. This can be seen from the guns they resist. Ordinary people who can resist firearms? It's just that the clothes on their bodies can no longer tell what color they are. Could it be the unwilling French? Shi Xiong looked at the group of Vasicchus who were about to freeze to death, but also dumbfounded. Dare to go deep here in this season. Why is this not looking for death? At %. Save us, save us, for the sake of God, please save us. The arrival of the stone bear obviously gave this group of Vasicchus hope, and they must be able to see the stone bear, leadership status. So one of the guys who looked like a beard puffed and knelt on the ground. At first he was speaking Spanish, but when he saw that the big man didn't understand, he immediately switched to a strange accent, said in weird English. Shi Xiong didn't take care of this guy. Even if this guy seemed to be the leader of this group of Vasicchus, Shi Xiong would definitely not be able to save them until he knew the ins and outs. These guys are obviously not British, so Shi Xiong is not at ease. Ishikama turned his head and asked Yingyu, Hawk Feather, what's the matter with these guys? Eagle Feather, with half of his arm missing, shook his head and said, My Lord Guardian, I don't know where these people come from. They seem to have emerged from the river channel suddenly, and then they seem to want to go to the tribe along the river. I saw that they were crowded and they were carrying muskets. So the alarm horn was sounded. Well, Eagle Feather, you did a good job. This vigilance must be maintained for a long time. Eagle Feather smiled honestly. Ishikama turned his head and asked the guy who was kneeling on the ground. Of course, he asked in English. Which country are you from? Why do you show up here with weapons? Ishikama's fluent English made the guy's eyes widen in surprise. In any case, he never thought that there would be a group of natives who could speak English so fluently, even more fluently than his own English. This distinguished leader, I am Major Felisa Fernando of the North American Squadron of the Royal Spanish Navy. This time we are with friendship and want to come to a tribe to discuss something. It is a pity that our fleet is at Big Bend. There was a blizzard in China, all 4 boats hit the rocks and sank, and there were more than 300 people and only us. Fortunately, our guide knew the location of the tribe, so we came here on foot. But we underestimated this one. The power of the blizzard. Our people can no longer hold on. Dear leader, please also ask your people to help us. Are you Spaniards? Or are you soldiers of the Royal Spanish Navy? Shi Xiong's eyes widened in surprise. Why did the Spaniards come here? Don't they know that this is the place of the French and the British? Well, it doesn't matter anymore. Now the Spaniards are hooking up with the French. The French even ceded New Orleans to the Spaniards. The Spaniards' fleet went upstream along the Mi River, and it was not impossible to find here along the Tennessee River. Although the Mad Bull came back some time ago, he said that he had a fierce fight with the Spaniards in the southeast of the Cree and killed the Semino allied forces, but Shi Xiong knew that it was very likely it was the Spaniards who were fooled by the Seminoes, so they sent troops. But generally speaking, Spain's sphere of influence is in Central and South America and the Caribbean. North America is only limited to Florida, Louisiana, and the Gulf Coast of Texas, and there is no conflict of interest with itself. Shi Xiong thought for a while, then looked at the Spanish soldiers who were really about to freeze to death, and said loudly, "Give them some clothes, find some dead grass branches and other fires, and cook them some porridge." Shi Xiong knows very well that what these Spaniards need most now is a bite of hot porridge, otherwise they can really freeze to death. Although the Spaniards committed more crimes in the entire New World than the British, French, and other European countries combined, the Indians in Central and South America were too far away from the Stone Bears, and the Spaniards also played against the Stone Bears. Xiong didn't have any direct conflict of interest, so Shi Xiong hesitated for a while and felt softer. This is more than 100 lives after all. Of course, if the French were changed, Shi Xiong would definitely order the killing of these guys without hesitation. A few raging bonfires soon came into being. These Spanish soldiers were like wild dogs that had taken off their reins. They even crawled around. The red flames caused frostbite on their faces and hands. The guys showed contented smiles. A few warriors riding war horses quickly returned from the tribe, carrying a few cauldrons on horsebacks, and a large bag of stick noodles. Several soldiers smashed open the frozen river surface, filled some river water in a cauldron, and put it on the bonfire. When the pot boiled, they poured the stirred noodles into the pot, and waited a while until it was hot. The polenta can be drunk. The hot Spanish soldiers crossed their chests one by one. www.wuxiasput.com. They kept grateful to the soldiers of the Gaoshu tribe. It could be seen that they were grateful from the bottom of their hearts. In this kind of weather, when they were about to freeze to death, after they witnessed so many partners dying alive on the road, these large pots of hot polenta and these bonfires were more than gods for them. The gospel is even better. A bowl of hot polenta was eaten, and the souls of these Spanish soldiers seemed to have completely returned. Those who continued to drink the porridge were more grateful to the people of the Gaoshu tribe. Even if the warriors of the tribe took their muskets and bayonets, they didn't care. Shi Xiong asked the Felisa Fernand who was drinking the second bowl of porridge, "Where is your guide? I want to ask him a few questions." Felisa was taken aback, then shook his head, sighed like a fate, and pointed at one of the soldiers. Shi Xiong glanced over, and was also happy. This guy was clearly an Indian, but he was wearing a Spanish military uniform, and he didn't know he was pulled from the hapless freezing ghost. Chapter 398, Fishing Spear. "What's your name? Which tribe are you from?" Shi Xiong asked the guide aside. "You are the guardian of the Kabul sacrifice of the High Tree tribe, right?" The guide looked very excited, and instead of answering Stone Bear's question, he asked such a question. Stone Bear frowned and nodded. "Yes, I am Great Bear, the guardian of the High Priest Kabru. You haven't answered my question yet." "Hey, I am so excited to see you," the skinny man said with a dry smile, rubbing his hands. "My name is Yuayuo and I belong to the Chimosishi tribe." Huh? You are from Chimosa. Then why did you get entangled with these Spaniards? Also, the leader of your tribe is called Dashi, right? Yeah, Master Guardian, you are asking the wrong question. Dashi is not the leader of our tribe. He is the leader of the Little Apalut tribe. The leader of our tribe is Tamin. Hearing this, Shi Xiong's brows opened. It seems that this guy is really from the Chimosa tribe. When Stone Bear traveled between Gaoshu and Zio tribes alone, he once went to Chimosa tribe. The Chimosa tribe is also a small tribe in the Cherokee tribe. It was separated from a large tribe when it moved south. For more than 200 years, he has been living in the swamp. The Chimosa in Cherokee means tribe living on the swamp. The swamp where Chimosa lives is located at the junction of the Cherokee and Chickasaws. Although it is the closest to the Chickasaws, their tribe has never been attacked by the Chickasaws. No way. The place where the Chimosa tribe lives is too dangerous. The swamps are the best natural barrier for them. Swamps are as dangerous as deserts, even more dangerous than deserts. Once people who are not familiar with the road stray into the swamp, very few people can survive. Most of them will be swallowed by the swamp or eaten by the crocodiles living in the swamp. If Stone Bear had not been helped by the Chimosa tribe, he would not be able to travel freely in the swamp, single-handedly traveling between the Gaoshu tribe and the Zio tribe. Therefore, he naturally knows who the leader of Chimosa is. The skinny man was right. Tamin was indeed the leader of the Chimosa tribe. Then, how did you get entangled with these Spaniards? After confirming the identity of the fishing spear, Shi Xiong continued to ask him. Master, Guardian, can't I help it? Yu Liao smiled bitterly, rubbing his hands with trembling. It looked like he was very cold. Shi Xiong took out a wolfskin robe from Huofeng's rucksack and threw it over. The fishing spear took it in panic and put it on him. Shi Xiong took out a bag of wine from his luggage and handed it to the fishing spear. Take 2 sips. This will warm you up immediately. Yu Liao hesitated for a moment, and then unscrewed the lid of the skin bag, and the strong smell of wine suddenly made his eyes light up. Master, Guardian, is this the kind of high-grade liquor produced by your Gaoshu tribe? Yes, take a couple of warm mouthfuls. Shi Xiong smiled and nodded. Hey, this is a good thing. I heard from the tribe last year that you had passed our tribe and left some wine for our tribe. It's a pity that I was hunting outside at that time and didn't see you. As Spear said, he took a big sip, and he was so spicy. Good wine. It's really exciting. Spear's face turned red without much effort. The wolfskin robe and the sip of wine on my body quickly came into play, and the fishing spear stopped trembling. Guardian, this winter is particularly difficult. My family has a large population, so I have to go hunting in this weather. I was preparing to set some grass jumpers on the swamp that day, but I met these guys next to the Big Bend. They caught me and asked me where the High Tree tribe was. I lied and said I didn't know. I brought it on the boat. The grass spongy is what the North American Indians call the hare. In this era, there are a lot of hares in North America, and winter, especially just after the heavy snowfall, is the best time to catch rabbits. So, you were taken captive by these Vasikas? Shi Xiong asked. Well, I was taken captive by these guys, but I didn't dare to resist. At that time, they had 4 big boats and there were more than 300 people. I was alone. I could only listen to them obediently, but I didn't dare to resist. I can swear to the river god, I didn't show them the way at first. I just told them that I had only heard of the name of the Gaoshu tribe, but I had never been there, so I didn't know the way. Then, why are you and them here? Shi Xiong asked again. The people of Chimosa must know how the Gaoshu tribe went. When he went to the Zio tribe, he had stayed at the Chimosa tribe. At first, he thought that they were all members of the same tribe, and the Gaoshu tribe was still the tribe of the Kabaru high priest. Therefore, the people of the Chimosa tribe are also very yearning for the Gaoshu tribe, and Stone Bear told them the general route. Therefore, this fishing spear must know the general route to the Gaoshu tribe. I can't help it. Those Vasichu's boats passed the Great South Fork along the Big Bend, and when they were about to reach the area of Pumpkin Bay, a blizzard came and their boats were blown on the rocks by the blizzard. All 4 boats sank in that section of the river, and many people died even with those Vasichus. as if remembering the situation at that time. The fishing spear shivered involuntarily, unscrewed the lid of the skin bag and took another sip of wine, and then continued, "At that time, I was desperately ashore with those Vasicus, frozen. Although we were not drowned, we almost died of freezing. If the Pumpkin Bay tribe is still there, www.wuxiaspot.com, we will be fine. At least the black pumpkin guy is here, and there are pumpkins grown by the Pumpkin Bay tribe. We won't starve to death." But guard lords, you also know that the Pumpkin Bay tribe of Black Pumpkin was wiped out by the Chickasha 2 years ago. Hearing you Spear talked about the Black Pumpkin and the Pumpkin Bay tribe, Stonehong couldn't help feeling sad for a while. Like the Shaggy Cattle tribe, the Pumpkin Bay tribe was once a small tribe separated from the Gaoshu tribe. They settled on the north bank of Da Bend to the northwest of the Gaoshu tribe. They were attacked by the Chickashas and destroyed their tribe. Yu Liao's words also made Stone Bear once again confirm that he is indeed a Cherokee, otherwise he would not name the Black Pumpkin and the Pumpkin Bay tribe. The weather was very cold when these Vasicus ships sank. Their food was not brought out. We were hungry and cold at that time, and the Pumpkin Bay tribe was gone, and there were no tribes around. We saw I was about to freeze to death and starve to death. I was unable to lead them to the High Tree tribe. Guardian, I am afraid of death. There are more than 40 people walking along the way. Vasiku died on the road. There was a look of horror on you Spear's face, and it seemed that what had happened in the past few days really frightened him. If you are listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelist. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We are waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 399, Giveaway. After listening to you Spear's explanation, Shi Xiong understood. The fishing spear is a hapless guy. Isn't it? He went hunting in an unsuitable season, and he met a group of unsuitable people, and then encountered a blizzard in an unsuitable location, which eventually caused him to freeze to death and starve to death. Isn't this bad luck? But this also proves that Yu Liao is indeed not betraying the tribe. He is also involuntarily. In this case, Shi Xiong can't blame the fishing spear for bringing these Spaniards here. Human survival instinct is extremely powerful. Ask yourself, if you put yourself in the position of fishing spear, you will definitely do it without hesitation. Put other things aside first, and survive first is the most important thing. Master, Guardian, Yu Liao whispered. Just say it if you have something. My Lord Guardian, there is a reason why I decided to bring them here that day. Last time you passed by Chimosisha, you mentioned how your tribe defeated the Chickasha and French coalition forces. I didn't hear you personally, but my people told me. So I think that since your Gaoshu tribe possesses such a powerful force, you will definitely not be afraid of these Vasicus, so I brought them here. It's Shi Xiong nodded and said, Yu Zhao, I know this matter has nothing to do with you, so you don't have to blame yourself. It's not your fault that you brought them here. Thank you, Master Guardian. Yu Liao thanked Dade. Fishing spear. Then do you know what these Vasicus are asking for our Gaoshu tribe? Shi Xiong asked. Master Guardian, I don't know this anymore. I don't understand what they say. If it wasn't for one of them who could speak our language, I wouldn't know if they were looking for the Gaoshu tribe. But that would the guy who speaks our language also froze to death the day before yesterday. Okay, since you're here, let's go back to the tribe to rest for a few days. When the weather improves, I will ask the people of our tribe to send you back, Shi Xiong said lightly after thinking about it, and then waved. With 4 warriors, they returned to the tribe with fishing spears. Seeing the fish spear and the others disappeared in the heavy snow, Shi Xiong turned and walked towards the hapless Spaniards. How many schools in Frenan? Why did you look for the Gaoshu tribe? Also, where did you get the name of the Gaoshu tribe? Shi Xiong stood in front of the somewhat better Felisa Fernando, asking without a trace of expression on his face. A smile was squeezed out of Felisa Fernando's face, but the smile looked really terrifying on his frostbitten face. Dear Chief, You can call me Felisa, and my friends call me that. Also, I really appreciate your help. If it weren't for your help, we would probably die here. Damn it, it's in the snow. Although Felisa's English sounds a bit weird, at any rate it can be said to be clear. Shi Xiong can understand. However, Shi Xiong did not show a complacent look on his face because of his praise. He just increased his tone again and asked, "Where did you learn the name Gaoshu tribe? Also, what do you guys find about Gaoshu tribe matter? You must explain this clearly, otherwise don't blame me for throwing you here again." "Oh, God bless, honorable leader, you must not leave us here, it will freeze us to death," Felisa said pleadingly. "As long as you tell me the answer I want to know, then you will not be thrown here, I can guarantee this," Shi Xiong said lightly. Okay, I must tell you everything I know, my honorable leader," Felisa said sincerely. Regarding Felisa always calling himself the leader, Shi Xiong did not correct him. At this time, he must have a sufficient identity to deter this guy. "Dear leader, you probably should know that we have a good relationship with the Seminoles. A few months ago, the Cree, the mother clan of the Seminoles, was defeated by an army of the Cherokee. The chief of the Cree tribe was also captured by the soldiers of that army. The Seminoles wanted to rescue their chief and their mother, so they found us," Felisa said, and secretly looked at the big man with amazing physique. Shi Xiong frowned slightly and said, "If you have anything to say, don't hide it, otherwise I will turn around and leave now." Good, Felisa shuddered. "The Seminoles promised us a lot of benefits, so our general decided to send troops to help the Seminoles. In that battle, we and the Seminoles formed a team of nearly 6,000 people. When facing the Cherokee team with only 500 or 600 people, they were beaten down and suffered heavy casualties. In that battle, our general and I had our own eyes. I saw a powerful explosive weapon used by the Cherokee. That kind of weapon caused us huge casualties. So after the battle was over, our general asked the Seminoles to inquire about this, what kind of weapon. The Seminoles looked into their mother clan, and after a long period of inquiries, they learned that it was a weapon made by a tribe of the Cherokee tribe called the High Tree tribe, and the Cree tribe's tens of thousands of soldiers were completely defeated by this weapon. Therefore, our general wanted to find the Gaoshu tribe, and then make a deal with this tribe, and wanted to trade the method of making this weapon. Under the threat of Shi Xiong, Felisa pours beans in a bamboo tube and tells everything he knows. After hearing this, Shi Xiong frowned and said coldly, "Deal? The trade still needs to drive 4 large armed transport ships and more than 300 soldiers with muskets. You want to attack the Gaoshu tribe, right?" It's not like this, my respectable leader. www.wuxiaspot.com. We really didn't want to attack the Gaoshu tribe. I just want to do business with this tribe. Our 4 boats have a lot of food. Isn't this food your Indians' favorite thing? As for more than 300 people, it's just for safety reasons. Really, it's for safety. Do you know it best in your own hearts? Shi Xiong said coldly. Afterwards, Shi Xiong waved his hand and said loudly to the tribe's warriors, "Bring all these guys back to the tribe and take care of them. Well, when you leave for a while, don't forget to blindfold these guys. Our tribe, some things cannot be seen by these guys." As he said, Shi Xiong turned around and turned on Huofan's back, watching the soldiers play with the Spaniards, frowning and thinking, the Spaniards actually learned about the bullet-throwing news. It looks like a mad cow. The guy's sense of secrecy is still not enough, but it doesn't matter. The Spaniards are beyond their reach, and the more than 100 Spaniards who have given away in vain make good use of it. A handful of people. Chapter 400, Super Tribe. When the clansmen of the Gaoshu tribe saw Master Guardian go out and brought back a group of tattered Vasiku, they all enjoyed themselves. 2 years ago, also in such a cold winter, a group of ambitious Shikashes colluded with the French and launched a sneak attack on the Gaoshu tribe. A dozen tribesmen who were arresting bison in the north at that time died in that group of guys under the sword and gun. Moreover, these guys were coming in a hurry, seeing that they were about to break through the last pass. As a result, Lord Guardian used the fireball formation to trample all the invading enemies into mud. Well, Although there were some Frenchmen who weren't trampled by the fire bullet because they were running fast, they were eventually captured by the Guardian and the soldiers. Later, these captured Frenchmen became the best labor for mining raw salt in Shan. If the Guardian weren't eager to exchange these Frenchmen for supplies, it is estimated that those Frenchmen would work to death in Shan. What a great labor, it's all gone in the end. To be honest, many people in the tribe at that time still thought of the free hard work from time to time. As a result, I didn't expect that after 2 years, in such a cold winter, Master Guardian went out and circled so much. As a result, he brought back a group of Vasikas, and the number of Vasikas was more than 2. The group of people a year ago was a lot more. Now Shan will have free hard work again. This is the thinking of the majority of the tribe. This group of Vasiku, who seemed to be freezing to death, brought a lot of happiness to this tribe, which had become a little boring because of the cold. A group of little guys wrapped up like a ball gathered around this group of Vasiko to watch the excitement, and in front of each house, from time to time, I can see the idle tribesmen pointing to these Vasikas, but they all have smiles on their faces. The Spaniards, headed by Major Feliza, were also shocked by the big tribe in front of them. After the Gaoshu tribe took over the women and children of the Zio tribe and the small tribes previously separated, it has now transformed from a small tribe with no more than 300 people into a super large tribe with a population of more than 3,000. A tribe with a population of more than 3,000 can definitely be called a super tribe in this era. You must know that the largest tribe in the Tennessee River Valley, the Crooked Deer tribe in Karakuru, has a population of only more than 2,000. In the New World of North America in this era, the population of many tribes does not even have 3,000 people. Today's Gaoshu tribe has a population of more than 3,000, which is naturally huge. The most important thing is that the Gaoshu tribe is different from any tribe or tribe's royal court that Feliza has seen before. In his opinion, there are big houses built of rocks or neat red and blue bricks everywhere. They are simply better than the houses in many small cities in Spain, especially those very tall houses. Even many cathedrals in the country are magnificent. Although the decoration of these buildings is not as magnificent as the domestic churches, this kind of big house built of rocks has a special atmosphere. Feliza's origin is extraordinary. His father is an earl of the Kingdom of Spain, a real earl. Otherwise, with Feliza's age, it would be impossible for him to be favored by Major General Celeste Carlos, the commander of the North American Squadron of the Royal Spanish Navy, and become Major General Carlos's adjutant. That's right, this Major Feliza was the same Major Feliza who followed the Major General Carlos to watch the entire battle when Mad Bull fought the Spanish Semino coalition on the Cree's southeast defense line. As a child of a nobleman, Feliza naturally knew a lot of things, and things like art were something he had to learn from an early age. As the heir to an earl, artistic quality is only one of the most basic qualities of being a nobleman. So Feliza could see that the big buildings of the Gaoshu tribe were good. Could it be bad? After the cement was burned out, Shi Xiong decided to build several large buildings in the tribe, like the tribe's assembly hall, moved into the tallest and largest building today. Moreover, when building these buildings, the stone bears were all built in combination with the memories of later generations, and the style was naturally unusually atmospheric. Feliza really didn't expect that in the depths of the mountain, there should be such an incredible tribe. Suddenly, Feliza realized that he seemed to be missing something. What's the matter? Then Feliza's face turned pale. He only thought of this time that the big man with amazing physique was leading the warriors of this tribe with a musket on his back. Musket? How could an indigenous tribe have so many muskets? It seems that during the battle a few months ago, some of the Cherokee team of more than 500 people also had muskets. Could it be? A very bad idea suddenly appeared in Feliza's mind, which made him terrified and even lost the strength to walk. Although Feliza was very reluctant to admit that this tribe was most likely the high tree tribe he was looking for, he ultimately had to accept the fact that he had guessed, because Feliza was very sad to discover, no matter how you consider it, The possibility that the large indigenous tribe in front of you is the high tree tribe is as high as 99% exclamation mark. It seems as if only the shocking tribe in front of you can be worthy of the high tree tribe that can produce such powerful weapons. The panicked Major Feliza seemed to see a familiar tall figure in the daze. After he fixed his eyes on it, he quickly yelled, "Respected Chief, Honorable Chief, I need to give you something." "Say, I need you to listen to my explanation. I need you to listen to my explanation." That tall figure seems to be accompanying a pregnant woman. www.wuxiaspa.com. Seeing his cautious look, it is really hard for Major Feliza to imagine that the expressionless big man before could be so gentle. One side. Seeing that the big man was about to walk into the house with a pregnant woman, Major Feliza told him instinctively that if he didn't explain to the big man, the fate of himself and the soldiers would be very tragic and terrifying. So he tried hard to rush over, but after just running 2 steps, he felt that his eyes were dark, and a cold and hard object hit his forehead severely. For a moment, Feliza only felt that the entire sky was darkened. When the sharp pain from his nose and cheeks reached the cerebral cortex, the huge dizziness overwhelmed him, and then he and a tree felt, like a fallen tree. The one who couldn't be stunned fainted in the snow. What he didn't see was that the big man turned his head and yelled at the tribal warriors here, then turned around and carefully guarded the pregnant woman and walked into the house. After a while, the big man walked out the door again. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.